Chapter 2092. A gigantic demon the size of a mountain was moving quickly. He could cross millions of miles with a single step. Every time his foot landed on the ground, it was like an earthquake, shaking the surroundings. A beast king on the verge of becoming a half-step Dowlord? Suyu's eyes narrowed slightly. Just the three-peak five-crown emperors that Lai Hongjin had brought were not enough to deal with such a beast king. The giant beast king in front of them seemed to have detected the aura of Suyu and the others, and it took a step forward. When they heard the violent footsteps, it was already dark above their heads. They could only see a huge mountain range that spanned across their heads. At the bottom of the mountain range, chains of law scattered all over the sky. All those who were swept by the chains of laws, regardless of whether they were early-stage or mid-stage five-crown emperors, were instantly annihilated. Dozens of hunters didn't even have the chance to escape. They were all killed. Suyu's heart was suddenly alarmed. He stared at the sweeping chain of rules, and a colorful chain of the 6 paths of rules gushed out from his back and surrounded his body. Ding, ding, bang, bang. The densely packed sounds of collision resounded in his ears. Fortunately, he managed to resist it in the end. The huge wings on his back spread out, and the exaggerated jade wings that were tens of thousands of feet long spread out. With a light flap, a boundless gale was raised, and the huge mountain range was shaken. Then, only the gradually weakening whirlwind was left. What a powerful pair of wings! The huge demon suddenly flashed, and its body dissipated, transforming into a strange demon that was as tall as a normal human. Its entire body was made of incomparably hard stones, and it was filled with powerful explosive power. Dozens of jet-black chains coiled around his body, giving off an abnormally powerful and explosive feeling. His eyes were like 2 dazzling gemstones, and he looked in the direction where Suyu had fled. He said in a booming voice, "I want this winged doctrine artifact, fairy embryo." As he spoke, his body merged into the ground, and a bolt of lightning flashed deep underground. When he reappeared, Suyu was panting heavily. The consumption of the wings was enormous. Almost 90% of the Great Desolation Force had been used up. He had no choice but to use pills to replenish the Great Desolation Force. If I use the Tao Destruction Pestle and the Demon Heart Hammer, I should have a chance to kill him. However, it's not worth using it on him, Suyu said. The Tao Extinguishing Pestle could only be used once, and it was very difficult to restore it again, so it should not be wasted. He took out a compass with Lai Hongjin and the others' markings on it. After ascertaining the direction, Suyu quickly flew over. As he approached, he discovered that there was an unfamiliar young man accompanying Lai Hongjin. He had long white feathers, wavy golden hair, fair skin, and handsome features. Even in the eyes of humans, he was quite handsome. Lai Hongjin, who had a cold expression on his face, revealed a rare hint of a smile as he accompanied the young man as they walked, until Suyu's ripples suddenly appeared. Lai Hongjin glanced over, the smile on his face vanishing as he asked curiously, "There's news of the Beast King?" "Yes." Suyu nodded his head deeply. He walked over and took out Lai Yuan, who was severely injured and half dead. He was injured by the Beast King. I suggest that we stop the hunt for the Beast King immediately. After witnessing the terror of a Beast King, Suyu knew that Lai Hongjin and the others would be seeking their own deaths if they stayed behind. However, it was not convenient for him to say that he had seen a Beast King. Otherwise, how he had escaped from the hands of a Beast King would be an inexplicable problem. Lai Hongjin walked over with a solemn expression. After checking on Lai Yuan's injuries, his gaze softened slightly. "Fortunately, he's not dead. His injuries can be healed." She raised her head and asked, "Where did you find the Beast King?" Seeing that there was no fighting spirit in her eyes, Suyu said helplessly, 3 trillion miles to the northwest. Whether it's still there or not is unknown." Lai Hongjin took a deep look at Suyu, looking away without a word. Her expression was one of displeasure. Suyu did not understand her expression. "Sister Jeanne, there's something wrong with this servant of yours. I suggest that we capture him and interrogate him." The handsome young man with white feathers walked over with his hands clasped behind his back, looking Suyu up and down. His gaze was full of disdain and judgment. Lai Hongjin shook her head lightly. He's not a servant. He's my friend. Also, it's best not to capture him and interrogate him before you've investigated the matter thoroughly. Suyu did not understand what was going on. Did I do something wrong? He asked. Capturing and interrogating someone with just a few words was incomprehensible. The handsome young man with white feathers shook his head and said, "The real Beast King has been followed by my people. It's 1,000,000,000,000 miles to the southeast. We're talking about the past now, and it's completely different from the northwest you mentioned." Taking another look at the heavily injured Lai Yuan, the handsome young man with white feathers said indifferently, "Why did you lie that the Beast King is in the opposite direction? Also, how did Lai Yuan get injured? You should be glad that you're Lai Hongjin's servant. If you were mine, humph." Even though Lai Hongjin had already clarified that Suyu was not a servant, he still addressed him as such. Was it because he thought that Suyu was a servant? I've already said that you can't make wild guesses without evidence. Lai Hongjin said indifferently. Even though she said that, the way she looked at Suyu had changed slightly. Suyu finally understood what they meant. They had mistaken Lai Yuan's injuries as Suyu's doing. Although he did not know why there was a Beast King in the southeast, the one in the northwest was indeed a Beast King. If you have nowhere else to go, follow us to the southeast and capture the Beast King alive. Lai Hongjin nodded. Then, without waiting for Suyu's reply, she left quickly. The handsome young man with white feathers glanced at Suyu coldly, his eyes filled with undisguised suspicion. Suyu stood where he was, thinking for a while, then sighed deeply. It's hard to be a good person. I'd better follow her and take a look. If she's dead, then everything will be over. An hour later, a group of people appeared on the ground. It was Lai Bo and the others. Their expressions were filled with excitement. "Sister, you're finally here." Obviously, they were closer to the Beast King's position, but they could not defeat the Beast King by themselves. Hence, they were waiting here for Lai Hongjin. Suddenly, they saw the handsome young man with white feathers beside Lai Hongjin and were shocked. They stepped forward joyfully and said respectfully, "Xianling Prince, why are you here?" Lai Bo's words and actions showed his deep respect. Xianling King was a powerful demon king who ruled over 100 prefectures. His abilities overshadowed all the prefectures. Among them, Tianin Continent was one of the prefectures ruled by Xianling King. The handsome young man with white feathers before them was Xianling King's 9th son, Yu Wenqing. Throughout history, the probability of a demon king's son becoming a god guard was far higher than that of an ordinary person. Usually, among 10 new god guards, more than 5 are the demon king's son. Yu Wenqing's status was extraordinary. Even the master of Tianin Continent had to be polite to him, not daring to offend him. As the young master of Tianin Continent, it was only natural for Lai Bo to be so respectful. "Oh, you are?" Unexpectedly, Yu Wenqing did not have a deep impression of him. Lai Bo was not angry. Instead, he smiled and said, "I'm Lai Bo, the 3rd young master of Tianin Continent. When you came to Tianin Continent, we met." Yu Wenqing nodded slightly and said, "Oh, so it's you?" He still did not remember. He gave a perfunctory reply, then focused his attention on Lai Hongjin and conversed with him with a smile. His expression was warm, as if he was not talking to anyone else. Lai Bo grinned. He knew that Yu Wenqing was interested in his sister, so he did not disturb them. His sister and Yu Wenqing had been in the same school for 3 years in the academy, founded by the Xianling King. He had always been interested in his sister, but because she was focused on the martial path and had no interest in romance, he had never accepted her. Yu Wenqing had never given up all these years. He did not know whether it was a coincidence or a deliberate arrangement, but he had coincidentally met his sister at the 3rd hunting ground. Shaking his head, he retreated to the back. Realizing that Suyu was there too, he frowned. "Aren't you traveling alone? Why have you come to meet up with my sister? Are you afraid of running into danger?" He was not afraid of running into danger himself, but he was afraid that Lai Hongjin would be in danger. You could say that, so he did not want to explain too much. Lai Bo was a little displeased, but when he recalled that they were not counting on this person, he did not mind. He said, "Suit yourself. Just don't drag us down. In fact, it should be them who did not want to drag Suyu down. Suyu could come and go as he pleased. Even the Beast King of half-Dowlords could not do anything to him. The group hurried on their way and finally arrived at the place where the Beast King appeared. It was a demonic tiger the size of a small mountain, its body covered with bony spikes. Dozens of powerful hunters were surrounding it, trying to kill it. The demonic tiger's cultivation was extremely strong. It was at the peak of the 5-crown martial emperors. The strongest of the hunters around, it was only at the peak of the 5-crown martial emperors. Although the demonic tiger was alone, it suppressed all of the hunters, leaving them with no power to resist. Its unparalleled ferocity made one's heart tremble. Yu Wenqing smiled calmly. A bunch of scoundrels trying to get their hands on a Beast King. Sister Zhen, wait a moment. I will help you capture a Beast King alive. I will lend you a hand. Lai Bo came to a sudden understanding when he heard this. Yu Wenqing and his sister's coincidental meeting was not a coincidence. The fact that he was willing to hand over a Beast King to his sister meant that he had already captured a Beast King. He had come here especially for his sister. He wanted to help her capture a Beast King and win his sister's heart. As if understanding Yu Wenqing's intentions, Lai Hongjin said, I will do it myself. I have brought 3 helpers with me. It will not be difficult to capture a Beast King. Yu Wenqing said, Sister Zhen, do not underestimate this Beast King. Compared to other Beast Kings, it is not just a little bit stronger. 3-peak 5-crown martial emperors may not be able to do anything to it. Just watch me. He leaped forward and shot out 7-peak emperor tier offensive talismans from his palm. Instantly, the ferocious tiger demonic beast retreated frantically. His eyes were filled with deep fear. Oomph. Do you think it will be that easy to leave? Yu Wenqing put his palms together. 10-peak 5-crown emperor tier talismans rose into the air and formed a circle in front of Yu Wenqing. Lai Bo's eyes flashed with deep admiration. Talisman set? A talisman set was a talisman of the same type that was refined by the same person. The talismans were connected to each other. Not only did the power of their attacks stack, but they also complemented each other. Usually, each talisman could be used more than 10 times. 10 talismans in a set meant hundreds of peak 5-crown emperor tier attacks. Unless one was a half-step Dowlord, anyone else would die without a doubt. The 3-peak 5-crown emperors who had come with Lai Hongjin smiled bitterly. Let's not embarrass ourselves. With Yu Wenqing's grand lineup, there was no need for them to do anything. Looking at the tiger demonic beast, they could not help but sympathize. No matter how powerful he was, he could only blame himself for not being born into a good family when he met a prince who was willing to use talismans. However, Suyu stared at the tiger demonic beast and frowned deeply. His soul was far more powerful than anyone else's, and he could clearly feel the terror of the tiger demonic beast's soul. Ask him to come back quickly. He is no match for the tiger demonic beast, Suyu reminded him. Lai Bo glanced at him and said, Ignorant. Yu Wenqing has the absolute advantage. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that. If you don't understand, please shut your mouth. Almost at the same time as his voice trailed off, something strange happened. Black spots suddenly appeared on the surface of the tiger demonic beast body, covering its entire body. Yu Wenqing's offensive talismans landed on its body. The metal was absorbed by the spots, and it did not cause any harm. Yu Wenqing, who had a stern look on his face, was slightly stunned. He activated the talisman set and continued to attack. However, after the 100-peak 5-crown emperor's attacks landed, the tiger demonic beast was still unharmed. Yu Wenqing realized that something was wrong. He stared at the tiger demonic beast and said, Are you a mutated bone spur tiger demonic beast? Haha, you finally realized? The bone spur tiger demonic beast laughed. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Yu Wenqing sucked in a breath of cold air. Was it really a mutated bone spur tiger demonic beast? The tiger demonic beast race had strict requirements for bloodline inheritance. Even the slightest mutation would mean certain death. However, there's an almost negligible probability that the mutated tiger demonic beast would not die. Not only would it not die, but it would also be born with a new and terrifying talent. It would be invincible among those of the same level. Therefore, when encountering a mutated tiger demonic beast of the same level, there is no need to consider whether or not it could win. Instead, one should consider whether or not it could escape. We have gone through a lot of trouble and finally lured a person of sufficient importance here. Whether or not we can remove our status as prey depends on you. Xinling Prince. The tiger demonic beast laughed coldly and opened its giant mouth, letting out a beastly roar. Ah! Lai Hongzhen's guards and the peak 5 crown emperors all fainted on the spot. The only ones who were barely holding on were Suyu, Yu Wenxing, Lai Hongzhen, and Lai Bo. Suyu had the soul path fragment. Yu Wenxing had a powerful soul-protecting treasure, and Lai Hongzhen and Lai Bo were barely holding on by relying on their demonic bloodline. Even so, apart from Suyu, who was almost unaffected, the rest of them were in extreme danger and could not hold on for long. At the critical moment, Lai Hongzhen clenched his teeth slightly and flicked a finger on Lai Bo's body. A blood-red light entered Lai Bo's body from the tip of his finger. Then, Lai Hongzhen fainted on the spot. On the other hand, Lai Bo's pale face was much calmer. It was Lai Hongzhen who had transferred her demonic blood into Lai Bo's body at the most critical moment. She had left the hope of survival to her younger brother and had chosen to die. Yu Wenxing's expression changed drastically. He looked at the unconscious Lai Hongzhen and had no intention of taking her with him. He flapped the white wings on his back and fled immediately. Lai Bo was struggling slightly, but he could not care less about Lai Hongzhen. He turned and fled. In the blink of an eye, only Suyu was left standing where he was. Your attainments in the soul path are quite profound. You are not afraid of my innate talent, the giant roar. The tiger demonic beast licked his long, scarlet tongue. Generally speaking, strong souls are great nourishment to me. For some unknown reason, he did not pay much attention to Yu Wenxing, as if he was not worried that he could escape. He would update the next chapter tomorrow. Chapter 2093. Suyu said calmly, "If you like to eat, then come with me." He suddenly shot off into the distance. Live prey is always more interesting to eat. The mutated tiger demon grinned and chased after Suyu, ignoring Lai Hongzhen and the others on the ground. There was a huge gap between their cultivations. Without using the yin-yang wings of Tai Chi, Suyu was quickly overtaken. He floated in front of a mountain and slowly turned around. "Oh, you didn't plan to run away? Are you trying to protect your companions?" The mutated tiger demon looked at Suyu's unusual behavior and immediately realized what was going on. Suyu said, "If I were you, I'd leave immediately if I couldn't figure out the enemy." The mutated tiger demon's eyes moved slightly. He really couldn't see through Suyu. His cultivation was obviously quite weak, but everyone was afraid of his soul's roar, yet he seemed to be immune to it. However, cultivation was the foundation that determined one's strength. No matter how mysterious the opponent was, a low cultivation meant that the opponent wasn't very strong. A snake trying to disguise itself as a dragon to scare people will only make a fool of itself. The mutated tiger demon chuckled, and hundreds of bone spikes shot out of his body. They were like thunderbolts, thrusting towards Suyu at a speed that couldn't be detected by the naked eye. Suyu took out the royal dragon sword and swept it across. The sky was filled with pitch-black sword shadows, which fused with the power of the dragon and the sword to form a giant dragon formed by sword shadows. Clang, roar, sizzle. Countless collisions caused incomparably strong shock waves, tearing the space apart like dense spiderwebs. Wisps of nothingness seeped through the broken barrier. The mountain where Suyu was the first to bear the brunt of the impact. The land within 1,000,000 miles was full of cracks, and the hot spring hidden deep underground erupted. The gap between their cultivations was too great. The giant dragon formed by sword shadows was crushed by the white bone shadows, and it flew towards Suyu. Space folding. Suyu tore the space in front of him apart with one hand. Because of the space folding, the bone spikes in front of him strangely bypassed Suyu and shot toward his back. However, after the bone spikes missed their target, they turned around and shot back again. Endless space. So you put his palms together, and his 9 fingers moved like a wheel. His right eye was red. He had unexpectedly combined the space ability of the divine 9-dragon Cauldron. With a puffing sound, a giant space sphere was formed with Su Yu as the center. When the bone spikes shot into the sphere, they seemed to be frozen in place and could only move extremely slowly like snails. This technique combined the law of space and space freeze to create a space that was almost absolutely stagnant. Mastery of the law of space. Am I seeing things? The mutated tiger demon was extremely surprised. A person like you should at least be a precious disciple of the mysterious Tao Palace. How could you become the servant of a small continent lord in the demon realm? Su Yu's left eye emitted a purple light as he raised his hand and pointed a finger at the mutated tiger demon. Time freeze. The tiger demon suddenly felt an invisible presence binding it. It shook violently and broke the bindings with difficulty. However, Su Yu came forward with his sword and stabbed it into the tiger's eye. During the battle just now, Su Yu had seen clearly that there were strange spots on the tiger's back, which allowed it to be immune to most attacks. Only its eyes were its weakness. When the sword pierced through, one of the tiger's eyes was immediately destroyed by the sword's shadow and the powerful dragon might that surged in. The mutated tiger demon roared in pain, and an incomparably powerful desolation force rushed out of its body. It was almost visible to the naked eye, and it directly shook Su Yu and his sword away. Human. The mutated tiger demon roared angrily after being stabbed in the eye. It tried to recover its eye. For a tiger demon at the peak of the 5-crown divine realm, recovering its eye should only take a moment. However, it was surprised to find that there was an extremely obscure power left in its eye sockets. That power was very obscure. Not only did it destroy the vitality that had been reassembled in its eye sockets, but it also spread rapidly throughout its body, devouring all the vitality in its body. The power of death. Wrong. It's the death vortex. Just as Su Yu's voice fell, the power of death in its body suddenly rotated rapidly, and then suddenly erupted. The power of death, which was originally only in its eye sockets, immediately sprayed to all parts of its body, destroying its vitality. Its lustrous tiger skin quickly dimmed because of the rapid loss of vitality, and all parts of its body showed signs of rapid aging. A faint aura of death spread out from his body. The mutated tiger demon turned pale with fright and immediately used the desolation force to resist the power of death in its body. Ultimate ruins. Su Yu swept his sword at that moment. However, the mutated tiger demon was indeed powerful. Even with the power of death in its body, it did not reduce its fierceness. Avoiding its weak point, its tiger tail swept fiercely like a long whip, and it directly hit Su Yu. The moment it flew backward, Su Yu's eyes flashed. He raised his right hand, and the little Kylan was suddenly thrown away, landing on the thigh of the mutated tiger demon. The little Kylan clung to the mutated tiger demon's thigh with its 4 hooves and immediately opened its mouth to bite it. The poor little Kylan did not have sharp teeth, so it could not bite through the tiger's skin no matter how hard it tried. Instead, it bit out a mouthful of fur. Bah, I don't believe I can't deal with you. She could not bite through it, so she simply opened her mouth to spit out a large amount of power of nothingness. Chi. The power of nothingness was a terrible thing. However, when it fell on the leg of the mutated tiger demon, it only corroded a piece of its leg. Apart from that, it did not cause much damage. This was the power of nothingness, which would melt any existence except for the divine warriors. The toughness of the mutated tiger demon's body was amazing. I spit, spit. The little Kylan spat out dozens of mouthfuls of power of nothingness, filling the entire body of the mutated tiger demon. Its whole body began to rot violently, and the mutated tiger demon could not help but roar. Internally, there was the power of death that was rapidly eroding the body, and externally, there was the terrible power of nothingness. The mutated tiger demon was still extremely tenacious, and its ferocity did not diminish. Instead, it shot out tyrannical chains of law, lashing out randomly. Wherever the whip touched, it would be completely destroyed. The little Kylan was so scared that it quickly turned into nothingness to avoid the disaster. It ran to Suyu's shoulder with lingering fear. This guy is so difficult to deal with. An ordinary peak 5-crown divine warrior would have been killed or seriously injured by them. However, the mutated tiger demon only suffered some minor injuries. Seeing that its ferocious power was getting stronger and stronger, the 6 chains of law behind Suyu swept out at the same time. The combined law was like a hot knife through butter, crushing all the opponent's chains. What? The mutated tiger demon was shocked. 6 chains of law? At the moment when it was shocked, Suyu took the opportunity to flash over, and once again stabbed the sword into its remaining eye. The mutated tiger demon roared and whipped Suyu away with its tail. However, at this moment, Suyu slashed backward with his sword. With the help of the powerful counterforce, not only did he stop flying backward, but he also flew back to the mutated tiger demon. At the same time, he took out the primeval chaos cudgel. Restriction open. He tore apart all 3 layers of restriction with his hand. All the power in the primeval chaos cudgel was immediately released. Suyu swung the cudgel down with a loud bang. Even Suyu himself felt dizzy from the soul shock wave that was produced. The mutated tiger demon suffered this blow, and one could imagine how it felt. The ferocious mutated tiger demon roared violently, and its body fell to the ground, unable to stand steadily. It could be seen that its soul had been heavily hit by the primeval chaos cudgel. If it was any other peak 5-crown divine warrior, it would have passed out after receiving a full blow from the primeval chaos cudgel. However, the mutated tiger demon could still maintain most of its sanity, and there was no sign of it passing out. It seemed that this tiger's soul was extremely strong. It was difficult to use normal means of attack. With a thought, Suyu took out the demon forbidden heart hammer and hit its head hard. This object was the forbidden fairy embryo of the demon realm. Even a powerful pathmaster like Menkir had been defeated by this object, let alone the mutated tiger demon. As the hammer smashed down, the mutated tiger demon roared at the sky, and its eyes went blank. It had lost all its memories, leaving only its instincts. The loud roar sent Suyu flying, and the mutated tiger demon turned to escape. However, it had only taken a few steps before Suyu caught up with it. Having lost its memories, the mutated tiger demon was no longer dangerous. Under the continuous bombardment of the primeval chaos cudgel, the mutated tiger demon finally howled and lay on the ground, breathing heavily. He had finally succeeded in subduing it. Suyu was exhausted, and he let out a long breath. He had really put in a lot of effort. Fortunately, he had succeeded. As he was about to capture the tiger demon, 2 auras came together. It was the Xianling prince, Yu Wenqing, and Lai Hongzhen's younger brother, Lai Bo. They stared at the dying, mutated tiger demon on the ground in shock, their eyes filled with disbelief. They had sensed a huge movement in this place, so they had come here to investigate. Unexpectedly, what they saw was the scene in front of them. Who did this? Yu Wenqing looked around in shock, thinking that it was done by a strong man. He had seen the power of the mutated tiger demon. Even a peak 5-crown emperor would be in danger, so it was impossible for a mere servant to do this. What do you think? Suyu said calmly. He did not have a good impression of him. Huh? Looking at Suyu, who was covered in wounds, Yu Wenqing was shocked. It was really Suyu? How did you do it? Yu Wenqing was still doubtful. Suyu ignored him and reached out to capture the mutated tiger demon. Yu Wenqing's expression kept changing. Right at that moment, Suyu was shocked, and he felt an extreme sense of danger. Looking up, he saw that the whole sky had darkened. It was the half-Dowlord Beast King. Suyu's eyes darkened slightly. Of all times, it had to come now. Even though he had the Tao-destroying pestle, he was exhausted, and his martial energy was lacking. It was impossible for him to resist it. Without thinking, Suyu prepared to activate his wings and leave. With these wings, escaping would not be a problem. Yu Wenqing and Lai Bo's faces were pale, and they were terrified. Yu Wenqing immediately activated his wings and fled. However, The Beast King seemed to have locked onto him. Wherever he fled, the shadow would follow. What made his heart sink even more was that a figure had passed him and was rushing forward. It was Suyu. He was carrying the mutated tiger demon with one hand, and his movement technique was even faster than him. Chapter 2094. The talisman had no offensive power, but it had a strong binding effect, trapping Suyu in the center. Suyu's expression changed slightly, and he immediately tried to break through the talisman. However, the power of the talisman lay in its ability to explode continuously, breaking through one talisman after another. There was no way he could escape in a short period of time. Furthermore, Yuanqing took the opportunity to snatch the mutated tiger demon from Suyu's hands, then swaggered off. The giant shadow hesitated for a moment, but did not pursue Yuanqing. Instead, it stepped on Suyu. With that, Yuanqing was finally able to escape. Suyu's eyes were filled with anger. Seeing that the giant footprint was about to land on him, and that he had nowhere to run, he took out the substitution treasure that Mao Susu had given him. After imbuing it with the power of desolation, the substitution treasure did not replace Suyu. Instead, a powerful space appeared, teleporting away the land within a 100-mile radius around Suyu. Moreover, it was teleported in different directions. The entire land split into thousands of pieces, all of which were teleported away. Suyu and the little Kylan were also teleported away. He was both angry and amused at the same time. What was Mao Susu up to? Wasn't it supposed to be a substitution treasure? How did it become a space teleportation? However, judging from the range of the space teleportation, it was shocking. The owner of this item, even if he was not a Pathmaster, was at least a half-step Pathmaster. Moreover, although this item was not a substitute, it managed to teleport him away at the critical moment, avoiding the fatal attack. The reason why the space was being transported irregularly in all directions should be because of the huge footprint that had shattered the teleportation. After teleporting for an unknown amount of time, Suyu fell to the ground with a thud. At the same time, a petite, cute young girl with a pair of cat ears was in his arms. She sat on Suyu's body with a blank expression, looking around in confusion. This is the fourth hunting ground? How could we have traveled so far? Different hunting grounds had different levels of demonic energy, so the cat-eared young girl recognized it immediately. Her eyes were wide like walnuts, and she did not blink. That's not right. I should have been teleported 10 million miles away from you. How could I appear so far away? Why am I not the least bit surprised? Mao Susu. Suyu's cold snort could be heard from beneath her. Mao Susu looked down and got up with an embarrassed expression. Don't worry, I'll definitely find the refiner and have him give you justice. Really, wasn't it supposed to be a substitute magic treasure? How did it become a teleportation magic treasure? Does he have any sense of responsibility? Really? Suyu stood up, grabbed her head with one hand, and lifted her up. He then said calmly, I don't know whether other people have a sense of responsibility, but you almost killed me. Fortunately, this spatial teleportation was relatively stable and did not completely shatter under a single stomp. Instead, it collapsed. If it wasn't stable enough, Suyu would have died in the space collapse. Mao Susu knew she couldn't resist, so she didn't bother. She crossed her arms in front of her chest. Mortal, this is the second time you've treated me like this. Do you know how many young elites who admire me will beat you to death? Suyu tossed him aside angrily. Surveying the surroundings, he asked, how far is this place from the Tianyin continent? Mao Susu rubbed her head and said nonchalantly, it's very far. If we want to go back, it'll take about 2 months. I'm talking about the speed of a half-path master. With our speed, let me think, it might take 10 years. 2 months? Fortunately, it's not too far, Suyu said. Mao Susu rolled her eyes at him. Hey, you can't just listen to what people say. I told you, that's the speed of a half-path master. Suyu grabbed her shoulder and said, lead the way. I'll let you experience the speed of a half-path master. To be precise, even a half-path master couldn't match his speed. Mao Susu pointed in the direction of the Tianyin continent and said, nonchalantly, just go straight in that direction. Before she could finish her sentence, Suyu grabbed her shoulder. Then a pair of ridiculously huge jade wings suddenly unfurled. Wow, what? What is this thing? Without waiting for him to take a closer look, the wings flapped violently, and they were 1 trillion miles away in an instant. Suyu swallowed a few elixirs on the spot to replenish his primeval energy. Then he activated it a second time. 10 times in a row, they left the 4th hunting ground and entered the border of the 3rd hunting ground. Mouse Susu's eyes widened, and she exclaimed excitedly, "Wow, what an amazing pair of wings. I really want them." I'm so surprised. Seeing Suyu's expression, Mouse Susu immediately changed her words. All of a sudden, Mouse Susu rolled her eyes and said, "Hey, why don't we return to the Luoyun continent? I'll give you 10 times what Hong Hong gave you. Really, I swear." Suyu looked at her and said, "Then, you'll want it back 10 times, right?" He didn't even need to use the visitation spell to know what Mouse Susu was thinking. Wouldn't it be like sending a sheep into a wolf's den if they returned to her Luoyun continent? Don't say that. Am I that shameless? Mouse Susu rubbed her nose, feeling wronged. Suyu calmly shook his head. "I feel that the word shameless, when compared to you, is so holy." She knocked Suyu unconscious the first time they met and wanted to snatch the little Kylan. No one else could do that. Humph. You must be thinking that my purple color isn't as good as Hong Hong's. I knew it. All men are like that. Mouse Susu crossed her arms and said bitterly. Suyu did not say a word. He consumed a few elixirs to replenish his desolate power before continuing on his journey. He had to return to the Tianyin continent. Firstly, he had to get the pass that Lai Hongjin had promised him. Secondly, he had to get Yuanqing. Without the substitution treasure that Mouse Susu had given him, he would have been in grave danger. How could he not avenge himself? At the 3rd hunting ground, Yuanqing managed to escape from the teleportation in time, only to witness an exceptionally large demon being teleported away. Even though it was only a brief encounter, Yuanqing still felt a lingering fear. That must have been a Beast King level existence, right? For 2 Beast Kings to appear in the same hunting ground was completely unexpected. He couldn't help but recall that Suyu had mentioned before that there was another Beast King. Now, it seemed that everything was true. At that moment, Lai Bo had also escaped by a hair's breadth and met up with Yuanqing. "Prince Xianling, it's great that you're all right." Yuanqing nodded and said, "Let's go back and see your sister." When the two of them arrived at the place where they had first encountered the mutated tiger demon, Lai Hongjin was still unconscious. Lai Bo tapped between his brows and retrieved a drop of faint demon blood, injecting it back into Lai Hongjin's body. Lai Hongjin slowly regained consciousness. She looked at Lai Bo and Yuanqing, who were close at hand. When she noticed the mutated tiger demon, her expression changed and she scrambled to her feet. When she noticed that the mutated tiger demon was on the brink of death and had been captured alive, she asked in shock, "Who captured it alive?" Yuanqing said, "It was Su." After a pause, Yuanqing's eyes turned slightly, and he said, "Yes, it was me." Lai Bo's expression changed. "How could it be you? It was obviously Suyu." Yuanqing hadn't even fought the mutated tiger demon head-on. How could he steal the fruits of others' labor? However, after thinking about it carefully, Suyu was already dead. Who would know the truth? Was Lai Bo killed by Mr. Yuanqing? Lai Hongjin asked Lai Bo. She felt very strange. After the mutated tiger demon had unleashed its hidden abilities, Yuanqing had run away faster than anyone else. How could he have suddenly killed him? Lai Bo looked at Yuanqing and bit his lip lightly. He said, "Yes, it was the prince's doing." So he was already dead anyway. Moreover, he was very happy to see his sister marry Prince Xianling. That way, the status of the Tianyin continent would be improved to a certain extent. It would be a great thing for the Tianyin continent. Therefore, he might as well help Yuanqing lie, so that his sister would have a good impression of him and be grateful to him. Lai Hongjin put down the doubts in her heart. Even her brother had said so. What else was there to doubt? "Thank you, Prince Xianling, for saving my life. Hongjin will never forget it." Lai Hongjin bowed deeply, expressing her gratitude from the bottom of her heart. Lai Hongjin was well aware of how dangerous the situation was just now. "Sister, in order to save you, Prince Xianling fought with the mutated tiger demon for a long time. He almost lost his life a few times. Fortunately, he won by a narrow margin, Lai Bo said. Hearing that, Lai Hongxin's gratitude deepened, and she bowed deeply to Yu Wenqing again. Yu Wenqing waved his hand indifferently. Sister Zhen, you don't have to be so formal with me. For you, I am willing to do anything. Lai Hongxin sighed softly in her heart. How could she not understand Yu Wenqing's feelings for her? However, she had heard a little about Yu Wenqing's character. He would change the women by his side in less than a year, and he would never marry them. His main purpose was to toy with them. How could she accept such a person? Hearing Yu Wenqing's pretentious words of intimacy, Lai Hongxin felt conflicted. However, he had saved her life, so she couldn't say much. She could only sigh inwardly. Looking around, she did not see Su Yu. Where is Su Yu? Lai Bo snorted disdainfully. Him? He abandoned you long ago and ran away. He must be hiding somewhere, too afraid to come out. Hearing that, Lai Hongxin sighed softly. You shouldn't blame him. His cultivation isn't strong enough to fight against the mutated tiger demon. He'll just be waiting for death if he stays. Even though she said that, she still felt a little uncomfortable. She had never expected him to fight against the mutated tiger demon. But was it really that difficult to save him? Compared to Yu Wenqing, Su Yu is really, forget it, let's go back first. Once he realizes that he is safe, he will naturally return to the Tianjin prefecture, Lai Hongxin said with a sigh. Yu Wenqing chuckled disapprovingly. Su Yu would probably never return. Half a month after they left, a huge shadow descended, finally transforming into a giant made of rocks. All our efforts have been in vain, the stone man said. He grabbed a handful of sand from the ground, which had the blood essence of the mutated tiger demon on it. However, let's save the mutated tiger demon first. It won't be too late to look for that human lad later. With a swoosh, he sped toward the Tianjin prefecture. Chapter 2095. Along the way, Su Yu kept recalling the great battle with the mutated tiger demon. During that battle, Su Yu had used the ultimate ruin several times, and he had gained some understanding. Along the way, he hurried along while quietly comprehending. Occasionally, he would stop and fuse the understanding in his heart into his sword techniques. A month later, in an ancient forest very close to the Tianjin continent, Su Yu held his sword with both hands, his expression solemn. His entire body's aura was completely restrained. At first glance, it looked like a mortal holding a long sword. But in an instant, his aura changed abruptly, becoming abnormally swift and fierce. Wisps of sword energy were burrowing out of his pores. It was as if he was the sword, and the sword was him. Ultimate ruined sword. Su Yu swept his sword horizontally. Suddenly, the whole world darkened, covered by the pitch-black sword shadows. The sun and moon lost their light, and the world lost its color. At the same time, thousands of sword shadows shuttled back and forth, leaving faint black marks on the whole world. Those marks were none other than the power of nothingness that had seeped through the world. The power of this sword was more than double that of the past. Beside him, Mao Susu was tearing off the petals one by one, saying, "He's a bad guy, no, he's..." Suddenly the sky darkened. Mao Susu looked up, and her expression changed. This guy's sword techniques are getting more terrifying by the day. She had witnessed with her own eyes that Su Yu's sword techniques were improving day by day, until the current terrifying scene. Faint marks were left in the space. This was already the level that a peak 5-crown emperor could achieve. With this sword technique alone, few people below the peak 5-crown emperor could be his match. Even if it was a peak 5-crown emperor who had just entered the peak, he could use his sword techniques to fight them head-on. Looking at the gradually fading marks in the sky, Su Yu nodded slightly, quite satisfied. The ultimate ruin style had reached the lower class. If he trained diligently, it would not be difficult for him to reach the upper class. Looking at the Tianjin continent, which was close at hand, Su Yu put away his sword and returned to the Tianjin prefecture with Mao Susu. Inside the mansion, in a quiet and elegant backyard, Yu Wenqing was admiring flowers with Lai Hongxin. "Little Sister Zhen, look at this flower. It isn't tainted by a speck of dust, It's fresh and beautiful. Do you know what I'm thinking of? Yuan Qing gently looked at Lai Hongzhen beside her and said, I thought of little sister Zhen, because she is more beautiful than a flower. Hearing these words filled with affection, Lai Hongzhen felt repulsed, but he couldn't show it. After returning for more than half a month, Yuan Qing stayed as a guest in the heavenly silver region, visiting Lai Hongzhen every few days. He tried everything he could to find an opportunity to be close to her. She knew that Yu Wenqing was trying hard to cultivate the relationship between them. However, it was really hard for her to have a good impression of him. She only felt grateful. However, Yu Wenqing was very patient and was not anxious in the slightest. Not only did he intentionally create a scene of him and Lai Hongzhen having a good relationship, he also continuously expressed goodwill towards the Heavenly Silver Region Lord, causing the entire Heavenly Silver Region to misunderstand that the two of them were about to get married. Now, wherever Lai Hongzhen went, he would hear the discussions of the servants. What was discussed the most was that First Miss was deeply moved by the hero who saved the beauty and was prepared to repay him with her body. Moreover, her father had even sought out Lai Hongzhen to have a heart-to-heart talk with him twice, and from his words, it was obvious that he had the intention of matchmaking them. It could be said that Yuan Qing had already created an established fact that they were already together. Mr. Yuan, I am a little tired. If you're still in the mood, why don't you let Lai Bo come and accompany you? Lai Hongzhen said. Yuan Qing apologized elegantly. I was thoughtless. If younger sister Zhen is tired, you can go back and rest. He knew that Lai Hongzhen was still repulsed by him. However, with his methods of toying with women, he was already 100% sure that he could win her over. Now that he had already created an established fact, all he needed was a chance to force her to feel morally remorseful and accept him. Hong Hong. Is Hong Hong here? We are back. All of a sudden, loud shouts could be heard throughout half of the mansion. A housekeeper hurried over to report, saying, First Miss, the cat lady, and Su have returned. Mouse Su and Suyu? Lai Hongzhen was puzzled. Why are they together? I will go and welcome them. Yuan Qing was left behind, his eyes gloomy and flickering with deep shock. Suyu is still alive? A hint of panic flashed across his eyes. Once Suyu returned, he would surely tell Lai Hongzhen the truth. At that time, the fact that he had harmed Su Yu and stolen the Beast King by impersonating him would be exposed. With Lai Hongzhen's abhorrence of evil, once he knew the truth, there would be no possibility of anything happening between them. After all, he was a love expert who had toyed with many women. Yuan Qing immediately came up with a plan. He found Lai Bo knowing that Su Yu had returned. Lai Bo was also very flustered. Back then, he had abandoned his sister and escaped alone. Only Su Yu knew about this. If you were to say it, what are you panicking about? Yuan Qing said calmly. Tell me, would Lai Hongzhen and the people of the Tianyin continent believe you and me, or would they believe an outsider? Only then did Lai Bo come to a sudden realization and said, What am I afraid of? Back then, only we were there. The truth we told is the truth. Who would believe his words? Lai Bo was very confident. Yuan Qing said, Haha, then let's have a face-to-face confrontation and turn our fabricated story into the truth. The two of them hurried to the door. Mao Susu had left without saying goodbye, suddenly disappearing from the Tianyin continent. This had become a thorn in the side of the Tianyin continent prefecture. If she were to disappear, they would not be able to answer to Luo Yinzhou. Hearing that she had returned, the important people of the prefecture went to greet her. Seeing so many people, Yuan Qing was even more satisfied. If more people knew the truth, then no matter who Suyu told, no one would believe him in the future. Mao Susu was surrounded by the crowd, replying sweetly to the crowd. As for Suyu, no one was interested. Isn't this the Suyu who abandoned Big Sister and escaped alone? Why are you back? I thought you had left the Tianyin continent and would never come back, Lai Bo said, having seen Yuan Qing's look. What he wanted to do now was to provoke Su Yu, to make him take the initiative to quarrel with them. In the quarrel, Su Yu would reveal the truth, and Yuan Qing would reveal their truth. In comparison, who would the crowd believe more? It would undoubtedly be Yuan Qing and Lai Bo. One side was the Xianling prince and the Tianyin continent's third young master, and the other side was a human of unknown origin. It was obvious whose truth was more trustworthy. Escaped alone? Suyu frowned slightly, not quite understanding how he had escaped. Indifferently, he said, "Can you explain it clearly?" Lai Bo shook his head and sighed. "What did you do yourself? And you need someone else to explain it for you. Don't you feel ashamed that an outsider like me has to say it?" Suyu did not say a word, staring at him calmly. Lai Bo said, "When a mutant tiger demon attacked, you abandoned my sister and escaped alone. Is that true? My sister treated you so well, but when it came to the end, you were a cowardly bandit who only cared about escaping." "Eh?" Suyu raised his brows slightly. He escaped? If he remembered correctly, Lai Bo had abandoned Lai Hongjin and escaped alone, hadn't he? Taking another look at Yu and Qing, Suyu's mind raced, and he vaguely understood what had happened. He was afraid that not only had he escaped, but even the mutant tiger demon he had captured might have been Yu and Qing's doing. Now, Lai Bo had taken the initiative to invert right and wrong, hoping to incite a quarrel between them, and then reveal the truth they had fabricated. Suyu immediately understood what they were plotting. If he retorted, he would be playing right into their hands. Thinking of this, Suyu's expression was indifferent. He said nothing and did not respond. "Eh? That's not right." Mao Susu's cat ears twitched. This fellow's speed of escape is terrifying. If he could save Hongjin, why wouldn't he take her with him? She had personally experienced Su Yu's escape speed, which was even more exaggerated than a half-path master's. Was it difficult for such a person to take Lai Hongjin with him? Lai Bo said, "Cowards, even if they have the ability to take people with them, it is difficult for them to have the courage to save others in danger. It is not difficult to understand." He stared at Suyu and said, "Why do you still have the face to come back? I thought you would hide in the Tianyin prefecture forever and never show yourself again." Hearing his repeated provocations, Suyu was even more certain of his guess. It seemed that it was true. He did not speak again, nor did he explain further. He turned and left the Tianyin prefecture. "Wait, where are you going?" Lai Hongjin called out to Suyu. Suyu turned his head and said, "To where I should go." The only reason he had stayed in the Tianyin prefecture was to obtain the entry pass. Since no one believed him, what else could he say? Seeing that Suyu did not even intend to take the entry pass, Lai Hongjin was puzzled. Did he not know that if she died outside, no one would help her with the entry pass? Since he could leave so easily, there was no reason for him not to save her, who was unconscious on the way. But her younger brother Lai Bo had said it with certainty, repeatedly confirming that Suyu had abandoned her and fled. What else was there for her to doubt? She waved her hand, signaling her younger brother and the people in the prefecture to shut up. She said, "If he saves me, it is a favor. If he doesn't, it is his duty. There is nothing to blame." As she spoke, she took out a glittering golden scroll, which had the seal of the Tianyin prefecture on it. She passed it to Suyu and said, "The entry pass has been prepared. Take it." Suyu thought for a moment, then took the entry pass. He deserved it. He did not say a word of thanks, but merely glanced at Lai Hongjin and said, "We shall not meet again." Hearing what sounded like an eternal farewell, and looking at those calm eyes, Lai Hongjin's heart skipped a beat for some reason. She recalled the scene when she had first met Suyu. That calm and composed person. Could he really be the kind of person who would flee in a panic in the face of danger? But the truth was clear. Perhaps it was just as her younger brother had said. You would never know what kind of choice a coward would make in times of danger. Have a safe journey. Lai Hongjin did not even try to persuade Suyu to stay. Given his reputation for abandoning her, Suyu staying would only make things more awkward for him. Suyu nodded indifferently and left silently. Chapter 2096. Yu and Qing frowned slightly. Suyu left without saying a word. The scene was different from what they had imagined. Not only did it fail to reveal the truth, but it also aroused suspicions. Something doesn't seem right. If he fled to escape punishment, why did he have the nerve to come back? He should know that he won't be treated well this time, right? Could it be for the pass? I feel like something is wrong. Yu and Qing had failed to achieve his goal, but it was good that Suyu was willing to leave. Mr. Yuan, can you tell us about your heroic deeds? Yes, yes, we are curious. The process must have been dangerous, right? Wow, this is a hero saving a damsel in distress that only appears in storytellers' tales. Su Yu's departure was an insignificant ripple that quickly died down. The women's attention was once again focused on Yuan Qing. He was like the moon surrounded by stars, receiving praise from everyone in the Tianjin prefecture. Haha, it's just a small matter. Don't mention it again, Yuan Qing said calmly. Tell us. We want to hear it. The young women's eyes were sparkling. In every woman's heart, there was a hero who could save them in the most dangerous of times. Was Yuan Qing Lai Hongzhen's hero? Not only was he powerful, but he also had an outstanding status. More importantly, he was loyal to Lai Hongzhen. Looking at the expectant eyes around him, Yuan Qing sighed helplessly. All right, since you want to hear it, I'll tell you briefly. Therefore, he narrated the story that he and Lai Bo had come up with great emotion. They had never witnessed the power of the tiger demon with their own eyes, so they naturally believed everything Yuan Qing said. Hearing about the danger, everyone's hearts tightened, and they broke out in cold sweat for Yuan Qing. After listening to him, everyone was amazed. What a series of twists and turns. I didn't expect the danger to be more terrifying than I imagined. It was really a narrow escape from death. It's so touching. Mr. Yuan did so much for Hongzhen. Lai Bo saw the opportunity and said, Sister, Mr. Yuan risked his life for you. Don't you think you should do something? As soon as he spoke, the crowd started to jeer. Hongzhen, you don't have to marry him, but you should at least respond to Mr. Yuan's feelings. That's right. You two are a perfect match. Let's be together. 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 The crowd followed suit. Yuan Qing's lips curled into a smile. This was the result he wanted. Seeing that Lai Hongzhen was at a loss of what to do under such an intense atmosphere, he knew that the best opportunity had come. Hongzhen, my heart is like the moon in the sky. It's always in your eyes, but it has never shone into your heart. I know you don't like me, but it doesn't matter. As long as my moonlight can illuminate the path ahead of you, it's fine. Hearing his implicit and affectionate confession, many young women covered their red lips, feeling envious and moved. What a beautiful confession. How touching. Hongzhen quickly agreed. That's right. If you don't agree, we're going to get angry. With such a husband, what else can I ask for in this life? Under the jeering of the crowd, Lai Hongzhen's heart also began to waver. Forced by the situation, she glanced at Yuan Qing and smiled bitterly in her heart. He had saved her life, so she should just accept him. Just as she was about to speak, the entire sky suddenly darkened. It was pitch black, and not a single nebula could be seen. A ray of bronze light shot out from the sky's silver region, repelling the darkness that enveloped it. But in just an instant, the bronze light was swallowed by the pitch black. A dim eagle fell from the sky, crashing into the sky silver region capital. Lai Hongzhen's expression changed drastically. She immediately rushed over, only to see an eagle man with broken wings crawling up from the ground with difficulty. Her eyes were filled with deep fear as she said word by word, Stone demon half-ancestor? It's you? There were countless stone demons in the demon realm, but there was only one who could embed the name half-ancestor in his name. That was one of the 10 great demon kings of the demon realm in the past, the Stone Demon King. Because of his treason, he was wanted by the demon realm, but had never been recorded. Because, like his name, he had inherited half of the inheritance of the Stone Demon Ancestor. And the Stone Demon Ancestor was a demon emperor of a certain generation. The strength of the Stone Demon half-ancestor, who had inherited half of the Stone Demon Ancestor's bloodline, was terrifying and immeasurable. It was said that the 10 great demon kings had once joined hands to hunt down the Stone Demon King. But not only did they not catch up, they even lost one and heavily injured 3. The Stone Demon half-ancestor ended up injured, hiding and hiding for hundreds of years. What made the Sky's Silver region lord terrified was that the Stone Demon half-ancestor, who had been missing for many years, had reappeared. Stone Demon half-ancestor? Yuan Qing sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes filled with fear. That was the most vicious criminal in the demon realm. According to the legends, his father, mysterious spirit king, could only escape if he encountered it, not daring to fight, let alone him. The powerful aura of the stone demon half-ancestor caused the entire sky, silver region to freeze, falling into a deep, deathly silence, until the black light faded, and a stone man descended upon the sky, silver region. His entire body was made of stone, giving off an incomparably hard feeling. His entire body even emitted a domineering intent. After the stone man appeared, he flicked his finger at the sky, silver region lord. Instantly, a 3-inch wide bloody hole appeared on the chest of the sky, silver region lord. The storage space hidden behind him was directly penetrated, revealing the details of the space, only to see a dying tiger demon lying motionlessly on the ground. The stone man lightly sighed. From the ground, a palm formed from sand appeared, bringing the tiger demon to the front of the stone man. "Wake up," the stone man said, his voice filled with a penetrating power. However, the tiger demon remained indifferent. Its eyes were lifeless as it raised its head and smiled foolishly. The stone man's expression changed slightly. He stretched out a finger and pointed at the tiger demon's forehead, his indifferent voice turning gloomy. "Memory destroyed? Who did this?" Everyone's hearts suddenly jumped, as if they had been struck by lightning. They couldn't help but look at Yuan Qing. When he had brought back the mutated tiger demon, it had been such a situation. Moreover, when he had described the process of his battle with the tiger demon, he had clearly stated that he had shattered the tiger demon's memory with a single palm. Whoosh! At this moment, Yuan Qing's face was like that of 4 human faces, pale with a tinge of purple. "Senior, Pa." On the ground beneath his feet, the sand suddenly condensed into a palm, slapping Yuan Qing's cheek. Yuan Qing was slapped so hard that he spun on the spot. "Senior, it wasn't me." Yuan Qing didn't dare to show the slightest bit of anger. Instead, he lowered his voice and said, "There's a misunderstanding. Kneel," the stone man said indifferently. Yuan Qing slightly gritted his teeth. Without even thinking, he immediately knelt down in front of the tiger demon. This scene made everyone feel slightly strange. Although the stone demon half-ancestor was terrifying, Yuan Qing had just described how he did not fear death and how he fought the mutated tiger demon with an indomitable will. Why did he not have the slightest bit of backbone now? Chapter 2097. Only the Demon King is qualified to stand and talk to me. Yuan could only kneel down to talk to him. The stone demon half-step ancestor said indifferently, "The tiger demon was a great general that followed me to establish the new Demon Dimension dynasty all those years ago, and he saved my life twice. During the final encirclement, he lured the enemies away in order to save me, and that's why he was captured alive and became a beast king that all of you hunted." Hearing this, everyone's hearts twitched, and their faces became even more gloomy. "The tiger demon is my savior." The stone demon sighed as he looked up to the sky. "I have cultivated for hundreds of years, and this time I came back to save him. Who knew you would do such a cruel thing?" The stone demon stared at you, winching with a cold gaze. The original plan was to lure a powerful demon king's son, capture him, and use him as a hostage so that the demon king could remove the prey mark on the tiger demon's body. As long as the mark was not removed, the tiger demon would not be able to leave the hunting ground. Once it left, it would explode and die. Unexpectedly, the tiger demon encountered an accident, and all its memories were destroyed. Even if the prey mark was removed, it would be worse than death. Yu Wenqing was frightened and said hurriedly, "Senior, please spare my life. I didn't capture the tiger demon." Huh. Everyone was even more suspicious. Was Yu Wenqing trying to shirk his responsibility? If he didn't capture it, then who did? There were only a few of them present at that time, and the strongest one was undoubtedly Yu Wenqing. The stone demon said calmly, "Are you trying to shirk your responsibility? If you didn't capture it, why did you bring it back to the Tianyin continent?" I am." Yu Wenqing looked around and saw many pairs of eyes staring at him. The stone demon's eyes gradually turned cold. "You have nothing to say, right?" I won't ask for anything else from you, as long as you end up with the same incomplete memory." As he spoke, the stone demon stared at Yuwenching, and the sand around him squirmed and stabbed at him. At this critical moment, Yuwenching did not dare to hide anything. He said hurriedly, "It was Suyu who captured the tiger demon. When I got it, it was already in a state with incomplete memory. It has nothing to do with me." The stone demon snorted lightly. According to the rules of the demon realm, the Beast King is related to the opportunity to enter the demon army. Why would Suyu give you the Beast King? It doesn't make sense. It seems you still want to quibble. He could no longer listen to you when Qing's nonsense, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Yuwenching was so scared that his little heart was beating wildly. He hurriedly said, "I stole it." The stone demon half-ancestor pondered for a moment before shaking his head. "I don't believe you." Yuwenching was filled with despair. At this moment, how could he still care about pursuing Lai Hongzhen? He could only hate himself for having to drag this dog skin plaster onto himself. He hurriedly said, "It's true. It was all true. You can ask Lai Bo if you don't believe me." The stone demon half-ancestor followed his gaze and looked at Lai Bo. With just a glance, Lai Bo's body trembled violently, and his knees almost gave way. He hurriedly said, It's none of my business. I didn't touch the tiger demon." The stone demon half-ancestor spoke indifferently. "What? You're participating as well? Then you have share too." Bang! A giant palm appeared beneath Lai Bo's feet, slapping him to the ground. Lai Bo covered his face and knelt on the ground obediently. He said pitifully, "Yuwenching and I really didn't do anything to the tiger demon. We didn't even touch it. After it unleashed its hidden cultivation, we both ran away, leaving only Suyu there. So, it really has nothing to do with us." Hearing this, everyone was stunned and in disbelief. Lai Hongzhen said, "Wait, that's not what you said just now. You all said that it was Suyu who ran away first, and that the two of you stayed behind bravely to protect me." The stone demon half-ancestor's eyes turned sharp, and he said indifferently, "Oh, that's interesting. It seems like you're trying to hide it from me and shirk your responsibility." When he said this, the two of them were scared out of their wits. Now that things had come to this, Yuwenching didn't dare to hide anything. She just wanted to get rid of the relationship immediately. So she said anxiously, "No, that's not it. I made up a story to gain Lai Hongzhen's favor. After the tiger demon mutated, I ran away immediately. Then you appeared, and I took the opportunity to trap Suyu and snatch his things. Then, in order to woo Lai Hongzhen, I made up all the lies. Lai Bo can testify to all of this. If you don't believe me, you can search my memory." Lai Bo nodded hurriedly. "Me too. I ran away from the beginning. The tiger demon's transformation has nothing to do with me." Slap! Slap! Two resounding slaps landed on their faces. Lai Hongzhen's eyes were spitting fire, and she glared at them as if she wanted to devour them. Her body couldn't help but tremble. It was unknown whether it was because of anger or shame. "I don't blame you for leaving me behind. But why did you snatch away Suyu's fruits of labor and slander him?" Her heart trembled violently. She had slapped in the face, but in reality, she had slapped herself in the face. How blind had she been to treat Yuwenching, the liar, as her savior, and Suyu as a coward? Thinking back to how she had coldly given him a pass, and how Suyu had left the heavenly silver prefecture without a word of explanation, Lai Hongzhen raised her hand and slapped herself in the face. Yes, she wished she could slap herself. Why had she been so stupid and hurt her savior? Everyone had run away. Even her own brother, who had received her demonic blood as a gift, had abandoned her. Only Suyu, an outsider whom she had only met once, had stayed behind to fight for her until the end. But what had she done? She had chased him away. This was the worst way to make one's heart go cold. Thinking of this, she chased after him with tears of regret. However, Suyu's figure was nowhere to be seen. After this departure, he would probably never return. After hearing this, the stone demon half-ancestor tapped their heads with his fingers, searching their memories. After looking, he snorted in disdain. Heartless and shameless people. Xianling King was a man of character, so how could he have given birth to such a coward? He looked at Lai Bo again, and his disdain deepened. Sacrificing yourself to help your sister in the face of danger, and then helping an outsider to toy with his own sister. You are a selfish, heartless thing. I have killed countless people in my life, but killing you would only dirty my hands. The stone demon half-ancestor's feet sank into the ground, and he looked around the heavenly silver prefecture with disdain. He shook his head in disappointment. 100 years have passed, and the demon realm is getting worse with each generation. Despicable people are everywhere. After saying this, he merged into the ground and left. The heavenly silver prefecture fell silent. Everyone looked at each other, and finally, they all stared at Yu Wenqing and Lai Bo. Chapter 2098. Yu Wenqing's status was noble, and Lai Yuan dared not vent his anger. But Lai Bo, he was too ashamed to call him a brother. The living beings in the Tianyin Continent's mansion were punching and kicking Lai Bo. Lai Bo could tolerate it at first, but when the housekeeper spat at him, he could not help but stand up and yell, "Who do you think you are? How dare you? Evil creature!" An enraged voice boomed like thunder in his ears. It was the Tianyin Continent's mansion master, who was walking over in great strides, his aura rising. When he was in front of Lai Bo, he raised his giant palm and slapped Lai Bo's face. Slap! The slap deformed half of Lai Bo's face. "Father!" Lai Bo covered his face, feeling wronged. "Get lost. I don't have a son like you." The Tianyin Continent's master sent him flying out of the mansion with a slap. "From now on, you are not allowed to step into the Tianyin Continent." He was planning to expel Lai Bo from the family. Lai Yuan and Lai Hongzhen looked at him angrily, without sympathy. Even though he was a relative, it was difficult for them to be associated with such a relative. The Tianyin Continent's master stared at Yu Wenqing coldly and said, "Mr. Yu Wenqing, I will report your situation to the Xianling King. Now, please forgive the Tianyin Continent's mansion for not being able to entertain you. Send the guest away." With his order, the servants in the mansion immediately chased him out. Yu Wenqing stumbled out of the mansion, his face full of embarrassment. Staring at the signboard of the Tianyin Continent's mansion, Yu Wenqing said angrily, "You don't know what's good for you." As the Xianling prince, he was being treated this way. However, what Yu Wenqing was most worried about now was his own safety. Before this, he had been able to travel around the continents alone because of his identity, and no one dared to provoke him. But now it was different. The stone demon half-ancestor had appeared, which meant that the rebel army of the past had reappeared in the demon realm. Looking around cautiously, Yu Wenqing did not dare to cause trouble again and immediately returned to the mansion. Inside the mansion, Lai Hongzhen said, "Father, I want to go on a long journey." She owed Su Yu an apology and a word of gratitude. If she did not express it, she would feel guilty. There is no chance. The heavenly silver continent's master sighed. The stone demon half-ancestor has returned to the demon dimension, and the space barriers between the continents will be reactivated to prevent the stone demon half-ancestor from wreaking havoc. With the world divided, it won't be easy for you to go anywhere, let alone to find Su Yu, who has disappeared without a trace. Lai Hongzhen's face was pale, his heart filled with regret. Several trillion miles away, in the Luo Yun continent far away from the heavenly silver continent, Su Yu appeared on a 1,000-meter-tall ancient tree, and as he looked around, he calmly asked, "Can you let go of me?" Mao Susu hugged his thigh tightly, not letting go for a moment. "No, mortal, don't even think of leaving me behind." Su Yu said, "I've already done my best by sending you here. It'll be inconvenient for you to follow me from now on." This was a place that one had to pass on the way to the seven-night divine capital. It could be considered as giving Mao Susu a ride. However, he couldn't bring Mao Susu along for the rest of the journey. "Boo-hoo, I'm not." Without giving her a chance to act coquettishly, Su Yu shook Mao Susu away and teleported away. Mao Susu stomped her feet angrily, gnashing her teeth in hatred. "Wah, you don't know how to be kind to the fairer sex. Don't let me see you again, or else I'll bite you to death." As soon as she finished speaking, Su Yu, who had left, reappeared. Mouse Susu was stunned and immediately corrected herself. Well, in our Luo Yin continent, biting you to death actually means that I like you very much. However, Su Yu's expression was grave. As he surveyed the surroundings, his gaze gradually changed. What's going on? Why is there a space barrier in your Luo Yin continent? He had used the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole just now, but it had suddenly been obstructed by the isolated space. As he spoke, Su Yu returned the way he had come. However, a moment later, he returned to this place once again. The path he had come from had been sealed. A space barrier had appeared at the border of the entire Luo Yin continent, isolating it from the outside world. A huge space isolation that involved the entire border must have been activated because of a huge incident that concerned life and death, right? Otherwise, just maintaining the existence of such a space barrier would consume resources equivalent to a year's worth of resources in the past. If there was no need, such a huge space barrier would never be activated. The space barrier has been activated, Mouse Susu said in surprise. Then, she cheered excitedly, jumping 30 feet high. Oh yeah, that's great. Heaven is helping me. Su Yu glared at her, and Mouse Susu corrected herself. What I mean is, I can bring you back to the Luo Yin Prefecture to thank you properly. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu said, All right, I have something to ask the Luo Yin Prefecture's prefecture master. He knew that Mouse Susu had asked him to stay behind with no good intentions. However, the space barrier of the Luo Yin continent was self-contained. Attacking one part of it was equivalent to attacking the entire barrier. Without the strength of a half-path master, it was impossible to shake the formation. It would be very difficult to leave the Luo Yin continent. It would be best if he could communicate with the Luo Yin continent master. If it didn't work out, he would consider using the Tao Destruction Pestle to forcibly open it. Under Mouse Susu's guidance, Su Yu instantly used his wings and flew to the Luo Yin Prefecture's prefecture. However, he had just landed when a rather powerful attack came at him. Su Yu opened his eyes and saw that the Luo Yin Prefecture's prefecture had fallen into a sea of flames. The prefecture was being besieged by a group of demons of unknown origins. Their clothes were messy, and it seemed like some of them were peddlers, some were high officials and nobles, and some were the guards of the Luo Yin continent. However, all of them had a yellow silk scarf wrapped around their arms. Mouse Susu's eyes were solemn, which was rare for her. She said in a low voice, The rebel army of the Tai, Qian Empire? Oh no, father. Mouse Susu's expression became anxious, and she was about to pounce down when Su Yu held her back. He said, Aren't you courting death if you go down now? The number of rebel soldiers at the moment was incalculable. On the other hand, the Luo Yin Prefecture's prefecture was unprepared, perhaps because the rebel army had appeared too suddenly. They had very few soldiers, and they wouldn't be able to hold out for long. If they went down now, they would be courting death. You can't save the Luo Yin Prefecture's prefecture. You can only find your father first. Mouse Susu's eyes were filled with tears, and she nodded blankly. Her eyes were looking around anxiously. All of a sudden, she saw a piece of remnant ice. She said, Look, that's the mark of my father's battle. My father has the ice element law, and once he attacks, a large piece of ice will appear in the vicinity. Su Yu understood, and he immediately used the heavenly eyes to scan the surroundings. Sure enough, he saw a series of remnant ice marks. He flew over to take a look, and he saw a black cat with an exceptionally strong body standing on its hind legs, waving its law. The black cat's whole body was muscular, especially the muscles on its chest, which were like balloons that had been blown up. Its face was also rough and wild. It looked like a muscular, burly man. Su Yu looked at him, then at the petite and adorable Mouse Susu. He couldn't help but be stunned. Was Mouse Susu really not picked up by him? However, the Luo Yin Prefecture's master was in a rather bad situation. Chapter 2099. He was being jointly attacked by two half-step Tao Lords, and his entire body was covered in severe injuries. The most shocking thing was his soul. Based on Su Yu's senses, his soul was already on the verge of collapsing. Now that he was relying on a single breath, he wouldn't be able to hold on for too long. What puzzled Suyu was that such a severe soul injury must have been caused by a soul attack. But the two people he was fighting with, whether it was magic treasures or divine arts, they were not soul attacks. Could it be that there were hidden experts? He looked around but did not find anything. Luoyin Prefecture Governor, it seems like you're a tough one. Just give up and surrender. I believe that the stone demon half-ancestor will put you in an important position. The two half-step Downlords joined forces to attack the Luoyin Prefecture Governor, causing his body to shatter. The Luoyin Continent Master laughed boorishly. Ha ha! It should be the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce that will put me in an important position, right? Sorry, I would rather be a dead soul than a dog of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. While laughing, the Luoyin Continent's master brandished his laws and started a great battle with the two. At some point in time, the mountains and rivers collapsed and the clouds flowed in reverse. The vibrating desolation power formed a terrifying shockwave that destroyed everything in its surroundings. Amidst the smoke and dust, the Luoyin Continent's master's body was pierced by two chains of law, nailing him to the ground. What a pity! A mighty lord of a generation will fall in the end. The half-step Downlord waved his hand, and a powerful law crushed the body of the Luoyin Continent's lord. Suyu sighed silently as he watched. If it was someone else fighting, he might not interfere. But the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, in his memories, anything that involved them was definitely not a good thing. Suyu and the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce also had an unexplainable grudge. Hold on to me, Suyu shouted softly, then used his wings to soar into the sky. In the instant that the Luoyin Continent's lord's body was torn to shreds, Xiao Chun suddenly appeared and grabbed him. Then, he activated the Taiji Yin-Yang wings and disappeared. The two half-step Downlords immediately noticed it, and they chased after him furiously. However, Suyu's speed was extremely fast, and they were unable to catch up to him. The two half-step Downlords' eyes were filled with surprise when they landed on a mountain. Who was that? In terms of speed, it has already surpassed a half-step Downlord, right? No matter who it is, chase after it. The Luoyin Prefecture Lord is in possession of a 1-yuan fragment. We have spent a lot of effort to capture him. We can't let all our efforts go to waste. The two half-step Downlords immediately began to fly throughout Luoyin Continent in search of the Lord of Luoyin Continent. However, even with their strength, they actually didn't notice anything. The Cloudnet continent seemed to be vast, but a half-step Downlord could traverse it in a few breaths of time. Within 2 hours, they had practically gone to every corner of the Luoyin continent, but they had not discovered anything. Unbeknownst to them, in a hidden cave, little Qilin cast out a void sphere, enveloping the group within. In this way, their auras were completely isolated and unable to be discovered. Father, Mao Susu hugged the heavily injured continent Lord Luoyin and burst into tears. When she left, Luoyin Zhou was still fine, but when she returned, it had been reduced to such a state. Suyu did not utter a single word, and simply treated his injuries. He then said calmly, "The injuries on your body are easy to deal with, as you can rely on yourself to heal them. However, as for the injuries on your soul, I am powerless to help you." He allowed a deep sigh. If it was an ordinary person, the Luoyin Continent Master would have already died. However, his willpower was extremely strong, and he had managed to maintain his crumbling soul, which was why he hadn't perished immediately. Now that he had left the battlefield, his tense mind slowly relaxed. His soul was already showing signs of fading away, and he was afraid that it would soon disappear from this world. The Luoyin Continent Master leaned against the wall and looked at the void sphere, then at the little Qilin. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Then, he looked at Suyu, and a weak smile appeared on his rough face. A human? Sometimes, I really don't understand why shocking great people always appear in the lowly third-rate clans. Suyu didn't really understand what he meant, and he wondered, has he met a powerful human before? "Thank you for saving me," the Luoyin Continent Master said. "I just happened to help you," Suyu replied calmly. The Luoyin Continent Master looked at him, then at Mao Susu. He then sighed and said, "Human, I want to give you something. Continent Master, you are too polite. You should try not to speak now, and you might be able to hold on for a while longer." The Luo Yin Continent Master shook his head. "I don't have long to live, and if I don't speak now, I will never have a chance to speak in the future." So Yu fell silent. He knew his father's injuries better than anyone else. Hearing this, Mao Susu burst into tears. The faint aura of death emanating from her father's body couldn't escape her nose. The Luo Yin Continent Master stroked Mao Susu's head, then looked at Su Yu and said, "I was fortunate enough to come across the skeleton of an almighty human. His corpse was displayed in the abyss, and it has been there since the beginning of the demon realm. It has never been extinguished, and it could be said that even the heavens couldn't bury him, and the earth couldn't destroy him. Anyone who came within 100,000 feet of him would be killed by the aura emitted by his corpse. Even half-path masters were no exception, so he was shocked upon hearing this. Just the aura emitted by a corpse that had been dead for so many years was enough to kill a half-path master? What kind of expert's corpse was this? He had obtained the corpse of a path master before, and it didn't have such a terrifying might. The absolute beginning realm's heavenly book was carved on the corpse, and it was obscure and difficult to understand. No one could decipher it, but I think it must be something extremely important, the Luo Yun Continent Master said. Su Yu was slightly moved, and he asked, "Does this have anything to do with the gift that you want to give me? What I want to tell you is where the human's corpse is." The Luo Yun Continent Master said, "The corpse's aura is very harmful to the demon clan, but it doesn't seem to have much of an effect on the human clan. The demon clan can only come within 100,000 feet of it, while the human clan can come within 1,000 feet of it. It is rumored that a human clan member could come within 1,000 feet of it, and he didn't die. That human clan member said that he saw a small cauldron beside the corpse, which had 9 divine dragons carved on it. It was definitely an extraordinary divine artifact, but no one could approach it. A small cauldron with 9 divine dragons?" Su Yu's heart thumped, and he couldn't help but think of the divine 9-dragon cauldron. Could it be that there was more than one divine 9-dragon cauldron in this world? Who was that almighty human? All of a sudden, Su Yu's chest shook. It was the divine 9-dragon cauldron. It seemed like it had heard the Luo Yun Continent Master's words, and it was reacting. This wasn't the first time that the divine 9-dragon cauldron had reacted on its own, but it was the first time that it had reacted to someone else's words. Was it really related to the divine 9-dragon cauldron? He was excited. The divine 9-dragon cauldron had always been a mystery that he couldn't solve. Now, perhaps he could finally find a clue. But he was still very rational, and he said, "That corpse has existed in the demon realm for such a long time. It doesn't make sense that you're the only one who knows about it, right?" But he was still very rational, and he said, "That corpse has existed in the demon realm for such a long time. It doesn't make sense that you're the only one who knows about it, right?" The suspicion in Su Yu's eyes grew deeper. If that's the case, didn't the demon emperor of the demon realm have any designs on it? Of course they did, but even the 7th demon emperor, who had dominated for thousands of generations, couldn't get within 1,000 feet of the corpse. I even heard that he was almost turned into ashes because he tried to force his way in. Hearing this, Su Yu was even more shocked. Even the 7th demon emperor, who was at the pinnacle, couldn't get within 1,000 feet of it? What kind of divine being was that corpse? After pondering for a moment, Su Yu said, "That place can't be entered at any time, right?" The breath of the Luoyun Continent Master began to weaken, and the scent of death became stronger. He nodded slightly. "Yes, that corpse is located in the first forbidden land of the demon realm, the ancient dream forbidden land. It is rumored that those who enter this forbidden land will often dream of scenes from ancient times. Many people are unable to extricate themselves from it and are forever immersed in the dream. In the end, their bodies rot and their souls perish within it. Only when the one yuan of the demon realm opens and releases a powerful demonic energy will one not dream of ancient times in the forbidden land. The duration is 1 year. If one does not leave the ancient dream forbidden land within a year, it is very likely that one will fall into an ancient dream and sink into oblivion. What is the one yuan? Suyu asked. The Luoyun continent master said, the one yuan is the first abyss opened in the demon realm. It contains an extremely powerful demonic energy. It is released once every 300 years to restore the increasingly thin demonic energy of the demon realm to its peak, ensuring the successful reproduction of the demon clan. Only at this moment can one safely enter the ancient dream, Forbidden Land. Even the previous demon emperors only dare to enter at this moment. Suyu nodded slightly. Other than that, are there any other requirements to enter the ancient dream, Forbidden Land? Yes, the Luoyun continent master said. You need to carry a 1 yuan fragment with you in order to freely enter and exit the ancient dream, Forbidden Land. Without waiting for Suyu to ask, the Luoyun continent master said, the 1 yuan fragment was personally salvaged from the 1 yuan by the first demon emperor of the first generation. They can form a very strange pattern, but other than that, they have no other use. In the end, it was discovered that carrying this fragment could allow one to safely enter the ancient dream, Forbidden Land at a certain time. The demon emperor then distributed the 100 fragments to the meritorious officials. Suyu did not speak and waited for him to continue. The ancestors of the Luoyun prefecture once obtained a fragment in the past. However, in recent years, no one has been willing to enter the ancient dream, Forbidden Land, so no one has paid attention to this fragment. Unexpectedly, for some unknown reason, the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce has found out about the existence of the skeleton and wants to steal it. The 1 yuan fragment of the Luoyun continent has become a must-have item. If my guess is correct, the fragments of the other continents that hold the fragments have already been snatched away. This time, the remnants of the Tai Qian Empire, who were secretly supported by the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, had made a comeback. Their appearance was too sudden, and there was no way to guard against them. Presumably, they had all failed. Suyu pondered for a moment and said, Elder, do you wish for me to go there? His narration was too detailed, and it did not seem like he was telling it to him, but to Mao Susu. Yes, and then bring my daughter along. Is that okay? The Luoyun continent master said. Suyu frowned deeply. If the ancient dream Forbidden Land is very dangerous, I suggest that you do not bring her along. The Luoyun continent master sighed. But my daughter is the 1 yuan fragment. If you do not bring her along, you will encounter unexpected danger at any time in the ancient dream Forbidden Land. She is a fragment. Suyu was surprised. The Luoyun continent master chuckled. The descendants of the Luoyun prefecture have always been rough and wild. How could we give birth to a descendant with delicate features? That is because the 1 yuan fragment has been integrated into Mao Susu's bloodline, which has affected her appearance. So that was it. Once the 1 yuan fragment has been integrated into the bloodline, it can no longer be extracted. If you do not believe me, you can take a drop of Mao Susu's blood essence and try. Chapter 2100. Although he said that he was grateful, he was actually asking Suyu to bring Mao Susu to the place where the skeleton was. There must be something particularly beneficial to Cat Susu there. As for Suyu, he was just a bodyguard who was escorting them. He was just going there along the way. The Luoyun continent's lord did not deny it. He said, there are only 100 1 yuan fragments. It won't be easy for you to find a second one. Suyu pondered for a moment, then said, all right, I can bring Mao Susu along to investigate, and I'll try my best to protect her. He believed that the Luoyun continent's master had no other choice. If he had a choice, he would not have placed his hopes on Suyu, who was only at the middle stage of the 4-crown martial emperor realm. Thank you. Luoyun continent's lord's voice started to weaken. In the end, he fixed his gaze on Mao Susu and revealed a loving expression. Susu, father can only accompany you to this point in your life. From now on, you'll have to rely on yourself. Mao Susu hugged Luoyun continent's lord tightly and cried, no, I won't be naughty anymore. I won't make trouble anymore. Father, please don't leave. He recalled how he had run away from home several times, how he had angered his father so many times that he had lost his appetite, how he had committed so many mistakes, and how his father had tried so hard to remedy them. As for her, she had never seriously thought about her father's silent sacrifice. Thinking of this, he was overwhelmed with grief. The Luo Yun continent's lord gently stroked her head and said, "Heaven and earth are boundless, and all living beings will return to dust one day. It's just a matter of time. Cough, cough. I think I'm just a reincarnation in this life. As your father, I'm a puppet of fate. Becoming your father is fate, and leaving your life is also fate." Mao Susu hugged him tightly and kept shaking her head. "I don't want such a fate. I don't want." Su Yu's heart was moved, and he raised his head to look at the boundless sea. Why do people die? Who made the rule that living beings must die? Was it the great Tao of heaven and earth? While he was lost in his thoughts, the Luo Yun continent's lord had already reached the end of his life. He raised his finger and pointed at Mao Susu's forehead. "Susu, live on." A blood-red light instantly entered Mao Susu's forehead from his fingertip. Mao Susu immediately closed her eyes and fell unconscious. He looked at Su Yu weakly and said, "A parting of life and death. Please don't let Mao Susu experience it. Human, treat my daughter well." Before he died, he took out an identity medallion with great difficulty. It was the medallion of the Luo Yun continent's lord. With this medallion, he could pass through the spatial barrier at will. With that, the Luo Yun continent's master's aura dissipated, and his soul turned completely gray. Su Yu sighed silently, then grabbed the badge and buried the Luo Yun continent master's skeleton on the spot. "Senior, have a safe journey." He picked up Cat Susu and flew into the air. The sudden appearance of his aura immediately drew the attention of two half-step Tao Lords, and they were both surprised and delighted. "Let's see where you can run this time." Su Yu calmly looked at them and said, "Those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. The Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Sooner or later, you will be abandoned by everyone." With that, it spread its huge wings and soared into the sky. When he collided with the spatial barrier, the continent Lord medallion in his bosom became boiling hot, causing the spatial barrier in front of him to melt. In a flash, Su Yu crossed the space barrier. On the other hand, the two half-step Tao Lords behind him had no choice but to utilize their laws and spend some time to forcefully break through the barrier. As for Su Yu, he ignored all the space barriers in front of him and sped toward the Seven Knights' divine capital. It didn't take long for him to shake off the two half-step Tao Lords. Several years later, after a long journey, Su Yu and Cat Susu crossed the entire demon realm and finally arrived at the demon realm's holy land, the Seven Knights' divine capital. Cat Susu had slowly extricated herself from the grief of losing her loved ones, but the mischievous look on her face was no longer there. Instead, it was filled with vicissitudes and maturity. "Brother Su, I have a friend in the divine capital who should be able to help you meet the demon prince." Along the way, Cat Susu already knew that Su Yu had come to the demon realm to meet the demon emperor. Su Yu said, "I'm sorry, I have to be delayed midway before I can go to the ancient dream Forbidden Lands." Cat Susu shook her head in understanding. "No, my father is forcing you. Brother Su, please finish your own business first." As she spoke, Cat Susu took out a communication jade pendant and said, "Nyonyo, I'm here in the divine capital." Before long, an urgent response came from the jade pendant. "The little bad cat is here in the divine capital. I'm so scared. What should I do?" Cat Susu snorted. "Are you coming to see me? All right, I'll come. The little bad cat is here in the divine capital. How can I not come?" The other party's voice was filled with surprise. "That's more like it," Cat Susu said as she put down the jade pendant. Only now did Cat Susu show a hint of her playfulness. "You really have a lot of friends," Su Yu exclaimed. Cat Susu had friends far away in the Seven Knights' divine capital, and they were quite close. Cat Susu blushed. "I used to be a playmate who did all sorts of evil things. Don't be surprised when you see me later." The two of them entered the Seven Knights' divine capital. Just as the rumors said, there was an extremely powerful spell in the divine capital. Only those with a pass could enter safely. Cat Susu calmly entered. When it was Su Yu's turn, he crossed the city gate with the pass in his hand. However, as soon as he entered, the spell in the city gate sounded an alarm. The soldiers guarding the city gate swept their sharp gazes over. A first-level wanted criminal has appeared. Arrest him immediately. The leader of the soldiers was a man in golden armor. His cultivation level was rather high, at the peak of the 5-crown martial emperor. He looked at the purple light flashing from the spell and decisively ordered the arrest. Su Yu was stunned. He had not killed a single person since he came to the demon realm. Since when had he become a wanted criminal? Could it be that the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce was behind this? How could he forget that several half-path masters from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce were hunting him? Seeing the golden-armored soldier walk over, Su Yu instinctively wanted to strike. Katsusu was shocked. She turned her head and saw that Su Yu was about to strike. She was even more shocked. She hurriedly said, "Brother Su, don't act rashly." Su Yu hesitated for a moment, but did not strike. Katsusu heaved a sigh of relief. The city gate of the Seven Knights' divine capital was an important location in the Imperial City. There was a powerful spell hidden there. The control of the spell was in the hands of the God Guards. Once it was activated, anyone who was not a Pathmaster would be turned into ashes. If Su Yu dared to resist, he would be executed immediately. The golden-armored soldier walked over, nodding his head to signal a few soldiers to put shackles on Su Yu. The shackles contained a strange demonic energy that could seal all the energy in a living being's body, rendering it unable to resist. Of course, for Su Yu, who possessed the soul path fragment, his soul could not be sealed. As long as he wanted to, he could still launch a soul attack at close range. The golden-armored soldier took out a thin crystal. The surface of the crystal rolled for a while, and information about countless different living beings appeared. Finally, the information suddenly stopped rolling and stopped at one of the lines. There was a clear image on the crystal, and there was a detailed description near the image. Species, human. Abilities, unknown. Level of danger, level 1. Criminal record. Killed 3 continent masters, persecuted, toyed with, and killed more than 30 women. Robbed and killed more than 100 passers-by, and killed more than 3,000 soldiers. Wanted level 1. Chapter 2101. The person in the portrait looked exactly the same as him. The only difference was that Su Yu had silver hair, while the other person had purple hair. Purple-haired Su Yu? Su Yu suddenly remembered that Yun Qinshuang had once said that she and her niece had been chased by a purple-haired Su Yu. Could it be him? Take him away and put him in prison to await trial. The golden-armored soldier said casually. There were too many criminals who were caught like this every day, and Su Yu was just one of them. So, he wasn't a big deal. Mao Susu was anxious. She did not believe that Su Yu was such an evil person. Moreover, those criminal records had all been committed recently near Luoyang. But Su Yu had been traveling with her recently. How could he have come all the way here to commit crimes? That purple-haired Su Yu was definitely not the silver-haired Su Yu she knew. She was anxious and immediately followed the soldiers. She watched as they escorted him to the prison, then hurried back to the rendezvous point with her friend. In front of a restaurant, with the restaurant as the center, the 3 streets nearby were temporarily controlled by golden-armored soldiers. No one was allowed to go near the restaurant. In front of the restaurant, a short young girl was adorned with expensive jewelry. She had a pair of dragon horns on her head, and she was charmingly naive. She paced back and forth with her hands behind her back, muttering, "Why isn't the little bad cat here yet? Hey, I'm here." Suddenly, she heard a shout from afar. She looked up and immediately ran over with a smile. She sized him up and said, "Little bad cat, what happened to you?" Mao Susu's face darkened. For the past 3 years, because of her father's death, she had been too distraught and had indeed become much thinner. "Nyonyo, I want to ask you for a favor," Mao Susu said immediately. This was not the time to reminisce. The young girl patted her chest and said, "Say it. There is nothing in Luoyang that I, Nyonyo, cannot do." She seemed to be exceptionally confident in herself. Mao Susu's eyes were filled with anxiety as she said, "My friend came to Luoyang with me. but he was arrested as soon as he entered the city. The young girl asked curiously why. Luoyang is not a small place, and they never arrest people randomly. Did your friend commit a crime? Mao Susu shook her head confidently. Absolutely not. He must have recognized the wrong person. Hurry and come with me to save him. She was burning with anxiety. The entire demon world paled at the mention of the divine capital's prison. None of the criminals who went in had ever returned in one piece. Losing an arm or a leg was still manageable, but some of them lost their memories, and some even lost their lives. Regardless of the severity of the crime, entering the divine capital's prison was equivalent to losing half of one's life. The young girl looked at Mao Susu and hesitated. After a while, she said, "Okay, let's go take a look first." Under the protection of a group of golden-armored soldiers, two petite and adorable girls arrived at the Avicii prison in the godly capital. As soon as the girl appeared, many experts guarding the Avicii prison saluted in panic. "Greetings, Princess by Xin." This girl was the famous Princess by Xin of the demon realm. In his entire life, the demon emperor only had one royal daughter and no other children. As the only imperial daughter, Princess by Xin had an extremely high status and was well known throughout the Yao world. Any demon would want to marry this princess and become the prince consort of the demon world. Once the demon king fell, the prince consort would have the chance to ascend the throne and become the new demon king. Take me to see a silver-haired human criminal who has just been caught. Princess by Xin changed her playful demeanor and became extremely dignified. Yes, with the princess leading the way, Mao Susu soon saw Su Yu, who was about to be tortured in the depths of the dark prison, which reeked of blood. "Brother Su, I'm here to save you," Mao Susu said. Su Yu was slightly curious. What kind of person had Mao Susu found to be able to enter and leave the heavily guarded prison so easily? He was sizing up Princess by Xin, and the princess was sizing her up as well. There was a hint of dissatisfaction on her face. "Susu, you didn't tell me that your friend is a man." Mao Susu knew that Princess by Xin didn't like her to have too much contact with men, so she said, "It's not what you think. We're just ordinary friends." However, Princess by Xion's eyes were full of disbelief and suspicion. After a moment of silence, Princess by Xion smiled delicately. I'm just kidding. Do you think I don't know what kind of person Susu is?" Suyu had a panoramic view of her expression. This woman's character was very similar to Mao Susu's. However, Suyu could keenly sense that this woman's playfulness and vivacity were 80% deliberate pretense. She was very profound in nature, which was completely different from Mao Susu's craftiness. "Show me his record." Princess by Xin waved her hand, and immediately a strong man presented the record of him with both hands in awe. After reading it, Princess by Xin frowned. "The crime he committed seems very serious." Mao Susu hurriedly said, "Nyonyo, believe me, they definitely caught the wrong person. We have been on our way to Luoyang for the past 3 years. How could he appear in Luoyang and commit such crimes?" Hearing this, Princess by Xin fell into a short period of thought. After a moment, she giggled. "I don't trust people, but do you think I don't trust you? Since you say it's not him, then it's not him." Only then did Mao Susu let out a long sigh of relief. She was very glad that she had made such a friend. "However, although I'm a princess, I can't release a suspect without permission. I can only let the magic guards conduct a thorough investigation. If he is innocent, he will be released soon." Mao Susu nodded vigorously. She knew Princess by Xion's difficulties, so she didn't ask for too much. Princess by Xion ordered, "Find out the true identity of this person immediately. If you have caught the wrong person, bring him to the palace to see me." "Yes, Susu, let's go to the palace and wait." Mao Susu nodded and cast a comforting look at Suyu. She said, "Brother Su, don't worry, everything will be fine soon." Suyu nodded and stared at Princess by Xion's back without saying a word. They left the prison and each boarded a beast carriage. After entering the carriage, the mischievous look on Princess by Xion's face faded little by little. She held her chin with one hand, and her eyes showed a deep look. After a while, she said, "Pass my secret order. Whether that person is really guilty or not, throw him into the royal hunting ground." "Yes, Princess." A faint response came from the carriage. Princess by Xian leaned on the soft pillow, and her eyes were cold. Not everyone is qualified to touch the Wunyuan fragment. Somewhere in Luoyang, in a restaurant, a man in a bamboo hat was sipping wine leisurely. Under his wide bamboo hat, a few strands of long purple hair could be seen. "Oh, isn't this trick of waiting for the rabbit to come?" He raised his head slightly, revealing his true face. It was Suyu. To be exact, it was the purple-haired Suyu. He came to the demon realm first and deliberately committed many serious crimes. His purpose was to use the power of the demon realm to help him capture Suyu. The effect was very good. Suyu was indeed captured. Chapter 2102. Suyu, how does it feel to be schemed against? The purple-haired Suyu laughed ferociously. It was as if he had been schemed against by Suyu before. In the dungeon, the three magic guards were examining Suyu carefully and patiently. "It's unfair. Why can he be re-examined? Why can't we?" "Hee, it's because we don't have a friend who knows Princess Pixin." The criminals in the prison were all clamoring, filled with jealousy and unwillingness. A moment later, the leading god guard, who was also the god guard who had personally escorted Suyu here, said with a smile, "Congratulations, the result of our investigation is that we didn't capture the wrong person." All of a sudden, the prison was in an uproar. "Ha! No matter how powerful the princess is, she can't be more powerful than the laws of the demon realm. It seems that having a friend who is a princess is not very useful. Those who deserve to die still have to die." The golden-armored soldier looked at Suyu with a hint of mockery in his eyes. "Are you disappointed?" Suyu must have experienced a huge drop from hope to disappointment. Unexpectedly, Suyu's expression was calm, and he said indifferently, "You are preparing to send me to the imperial hunting ground, right?" The golden-armored soldier's face suddenly froze as he stared at Suyu in disbelief. He had indeed received such an order, but how did Suyu know it in advance? Suyu, of course, had read Princess Pixin's mind and predicted it in advance. It was really God's will. He had hunted many prey in the hunting ground, but in the blink of an eye, he had become one of the prey. A trace of deep coldness flashed in the depths of his eyes. Suyu didn't care about how Princess Pixin treated him, but he couldn't forgive her for her viciousness towards Mao Susu. From her heart, Suyu could vaguely detect that Princess Pixin was planning something extremely vicious. "Take him to the royal hunting ground immediately. No delay," the golden-armored soldier scolded. He realized that something was wrong. The other two golden-armored soldiers immediately took Suyu out of the prison. The golden-armored soldier stepped forward and looked at Suyu. Then, he raised his hand and grabbed the Buddha bead space on his wrist. There were many important things for Suyu in it. However, Suyu was shackled and couldn't resist. At this moment, the little Kylan rushed out of the 9 jade spiritual bead and snatched away the space of the Buddha bead. It also snatched the 9 jade spiritual bead. The golden-armored soldier was caught off guard. The peak power of a 5-crown emperor suddenly struck towards the little Qilin. The little Kylan immediately turned into an incorporeal form, but because it wanted to snatch the 9 jade spiritual pearl, it was a step too late. Its hind leg was struck, and its entire leg was instantly broken. The little Qilin let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of Qilin blood. Seizing this opportunity, the golden-armored soldier stomped on his back. Little Kylan. Suyu's eyes were filled with murderous intent, and 2 beams of dazzling light shot out from his eyes, which instantly pierced toward the golden-armored soldier in front of him. Hiss! However, the other party only felt a slight pain in his head before he glared at Zhang Xian furiously. Because of that short pause, the little Qilin turned into an illusory form and fled, disappearing without a trace. Not even its aura could be caught. "You're courting death." The golden-armored soldier raised his hand and ruthlessly slapped his face. But when the whip was in midair, he forcefully endured it. The princess's instruction was to throw Su Yu into the imperial hunting ground, but she didn't say anything about punishing him. The princess had always been a man of her word, and she didn't like people who didn't know what to do. If he really hit Su Yu, he might violate the princess's taboo. Humph! The imperial hunting ground is different from other places. Let's see how many days you can survive. The golden-armored soldier snorted lightly. Take him away. Under their watch, Su Yu was taken to the depths of the palace, to a self-contained, independent space. The space was filled with criminals from all over the realm of demons. The number of criminals here was almost the sum of all the hunting grounds. In other places, criminals who could become Beast Kings were just relatively top-notch existences here. The real Beast Kings were the 3 half-path masters. The strength of the criminals here was so high that other hunting grounds couldn't even hope to match it. Similarly, the hunters who came here to hunt were never ordinary hunters. Only Princess Pishin, the Demon Prince, and the many magic guards were qualified to enter this place to hunt. The 3 golden-armored soldiers escorted Su Yu to a villa in the cavern world. The villa was full of extremely powerful seals, and even the half-path masters couldn't do anything about it. In front of the villa, a carefree young man said lightly, "Li Quan, are you trying to lower the difficulty of the hunting ground by sending us some good-looking but useless prey all day long?" Li Quan bowed respectfully and said, "Reporting to the Demon Prince, this is Princess Pishin's order." The carefree young man in front of him turned out to be a demon prince. The current demon emperor had only one son, and that was Princess Pishin. However, the demon emperor had adopted 9 sons in a row, and they were called demon princes. The person in front of him was the person in charge of the imperial hunting ground, Prince Jueyao. After learning that Princess Pishin had appointed him, Prince Jueyao's face changed slightly. He looked at Su Yu again and said solemnly, "Okay, remove the restraints and let him into the hunting ground." As he spoke, Prince Jueyao took a collar and handed it to Li Quan. Li Quan took it and sneered. He put it around Su Yu's neck and said mockingly, "The nightmare has begun, prey." This person was the prey that Princess Pishin had appointed. He would probably become the priority target of all the hunters. The collar in front of him was a special item of the imperial family, and it could show Su Yu's location at any time. What awaited Su Yu next was a long nightmare. After removing the shackles, Li Quan said coldly, "Use all your strength and start running. If you're 1 step slower, you will die." Su Yu stared at him deeply and memorized his name and appearance. Then, he leaped into the air and fled into the depths of the forest. Having had the experience of hunting prey, Su Yu knew very well how dangerous it was to stay in the same place for even a second when his position was completely exposed, and he was a hot prey. As soon as he left, all the hunters present took out a compass involuntarily. There was a golden spot of light flashing rapidly on the compass. Appointed prey? The hunters couldn't help but be delighted. Occasionally, there would be 1 or 2 prey appointed by Princess Pishin. If they could kill it, they would be able to meet the princess and ask for credit. Princess Pishin had always rewarded her meritorious subjects with generous rewards. The most common reward was a heavenly demon blood pill. It was a sacred item of the demon clan royal family. After it was crushed, it could release infinite power. If one could seize the opportunity, it wouldn't be difficult to break through to the level of a 5-crown emperor. At the same time, one could obtain the title of Hunter King. With this title, one could directly enter the magic army without having to go through layers of selection and elimination. So far, Princess Pishin had appointed 9 prey, and every one of them had obtained the above rewards without exception. After 20 years, Princess Pishin had suddenly appointed another prey, which immediately caused a sensation in the entire royal hunting ground. "I'm so lucky to have encountered a prey appointed by her." Somewhere in the hunting ground, a peak 5-crown emperor whose aura was close to that of a half-dowlord said excitedly, "Hee, it seems like I'm going to get the title of Hunter King again." All the hunters in the royal hunting ground moved upon hearing the news. Except for a few hunters who were at the critical moment of killing their targets, the rest of the hunters all moved out and flew toward where Su Yu was. Suyu fled into the depths of the forest, his mind racing. His space storage device and the 9 Jade Spiritual Pearl were temporarily in the custody of the little Kylan, so it would take a long time for her to get here. Now that he had nothing, once his desolate power was exhausted, without any replenishment, he would be in a desperate situation. Swoosh! The hunter closest to him cried out in surprise and rushed over. He immediately attacked Suyu. His cultivation was at the middle stage of the 5-crown emperor, which wasn't very high. In the past, Suyu would have been able to deal with him easily, but now, he didn't even have a suitable magical treasure. 6-path rules. Suyu's eyes shone brightly, and without any hesitation, he used all of his rules. He had no other choice, as even a slight delay could result in him being surrounded by the other hunters. If that happened, he would be in grave danger. His top priority now was to end the battle quickly. His opponent had just swept over with his rules, and before he could understand what was going on with the 6 colored rules behind Suyu, his own rules were swept away and destroyed. Poof! The 6 colored rules penetrated his chest, and with a violent vibration of the rules, his chest was shattered on the spot. A terrified soul flew out from the top of his head and fled into the distance. Suyu didn't say a word, and a crack opened up between his brows, revealing a rotating vortex. In just an instant, his opponent's soul was devoured. The impure energy in his soul dissipated, and the pure soul energy was absorbed by Suyu, becoming a part of his own soul. His soul had grown tremendously, close to the middle stage of the 5-crown emperor. After finishing off the one in front of him, Suyu immediately took away everything on his body. He barely found a usable ancient sword, probably an ordinary true emperor-level divine weapon with average power. But at least he had a weapon to use, which was better than nothing. The rest were miscellaneous talismans, elixirs, and the like. They were of relatively low levels and had almost no value. Just as he was about to plunder an ancient sword, another hunter flew over, his eyes full of anxiety, fearing that someone else would beat him to it. Suyu's eyes were cold, and 6-path rules swept out, destroying his opponent's body and taking away his soul. As a result, his soul skyrocketed again, and he was only a step away from reaching the middle stage of the 5-crown emperor. On this hunter's body, Suyu found 2 usable swords, as well as an offensive talisman of the middle stage of the 5-crown emperor. After killing 2 hunters in a row, Suyu flew west. From the memories of the 2 hunters, he learned that in the deepest part of the cavern world lived 3 beast kings. Each of them had the strength of a half-stepped Dowlord, and many of them were no less powerful than the peak of the 5-crown emperor. Ordinary hunters didn't dare to approach that place casually, so there were very few hunters. If he went there, it should be much safer. While escaping, Suyu opened the heavenly eyes, and with his huge eyes, he overlooked everything around him, predicting the arrival of the enemy in advance. Chapter 2103. There were simply too many hunters, so many that he could not contend against them. If he had all his treasures, he would not need to be afraid. But he was completely unarmed. How could he fight against those whose cultivation and treasures far surpassed his? It was difficult to make up for the huge gap between their cultivation levels by relying on the laws alone. His eyes flickered violently. Finally, he gritted his teeth and changed his direction, attacking the nearest mid-stage 5-crown emperor. With a sweep of the laws, he immediately killed his opponent and snatched everything he could use from his hands. After killing 1 hunter, he turned to attack another hunter with a weaker cultivation level. With the help of the heavenly eyes, Suyu could predict the enemy's movements. Under the heavy siege, he dodged left and right, continuously killing the weaker hunters. In just an hour, Suyu retreated and fought at the same time, continuously killing more than 20 mid-stage 5-crown emperor-level hunters. In addition to obtaining more than 10 usable swords, he also found a peak 5-crown emperor-level offensive talisman. At least he had a way to save his life. In addition, after crazily devouring the souls of the mid-stage 5-crown emperor-level hunters, Suyu's soul finally surpassed the early-stage 5-crown emperor level and reached the mid-stage. It was still a soul attack, but now that he had used the secret soul technique, its power was much stronger. Of course, Suyu had also paid a huge price. His body was badly mutilated, and the recovery speed of the law of life could not keep up with the speed of his injuries. More than half of the desolate power in his body had been used up, and he could not support too many battles. What was even more stifling was that he had exposed his true strength, causing all the mid-stage 5-crown Emperor hunters to retreat. No one dared to approach him. Now, those who were attacking him were all peak 5-crown Emperor level hunters. Suyu looked through the heavenly eyes. In every direction, there were at least 3 peak 5-crown Emperor level hunters. Breaking through their blockade was as difficult as ascending to heaven. But Suyu had no choice. He chose a direction, his eyes cold, and he clenched his teeth as he rushed forward. In that direction, 3 peak 5-crown Emperor level hunters were not angry, but happy, and could not help but laugh loudly. The target is mine. The peak 5-crown Emperor level hunter closest to Suyu laughed loudly. His stature was short, but his eyes were exceptionally sharp, like 2 luminous pearls, releasing a brilliant light in the dark forest. He was a famous earth monk of the magic army, proficient in the earth element law. Not only was his body strong in defense, but his attacks were also ferocious. Among those of the same cultivation level, his strength was above average, and he was extremely difficult to deal with. As the earthen monk laughed, he turned into yellow sand. Suyu was hurrying on with his journey when he suddenly saw a patch of dusky yellow at the end of the horizon. Ha ha ha, you're my prey. If you surrender, I'll keep you alive to see the princess. That way, you'll still have a chance to live. Otherwise, I'll send you to hell. Earthwalker laughed. How could Suyu believe his words? Even if he could keep her alive, would Princess Pishin? Taking a deep breath, Suyu clenched his teeth and carried the 18 long swords on his back. Ultimate Void Sword. Suyu did not retreat. Instead, he advanced and slashed his sword at the yellow sand that filled the sky. With a swish, pitch-black sword shadows filled the sky, leaving faint traces in the sky. They weaved into a huge net and enveloped the yellow sand. Clang! However, there was a dense sound of metal colliding. It was the powerful earth attribute defense of the underworld monk, which forcibly resisted the sharp sword shadows that even cut through the void. What exquisite swordsmanship! No wonder you've become the criminal that Princess Pishin appointed. Earthwalker's maniacal laughter weakened a little, and there was a hint of surprise in his voice. He never thought that Suyu's cultivation was inferior, but his swordsmanship was so earth-shattering and terrifying. That sword had actually injured him, even though the injury wasn't deep. The ancient sword in Suyu's hand shattered with a cracking sound. The 9th stroke of the demonic sword was too powerful, and ordinary ancient swords could not withstand it. Therefore, it was completely destroyed after using that sword. Without hesitation, he pulled out the 2nd sword and slashed it. Ultimate Void Sword. With another slash, the yellow sand that filled the sky was finally scattered into a mess. Earthwalker was a little annoyed. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. The scattered yellow sand barely gathered into a giant fist that was as large as a mountain, and with an indestructible force, it smashed down with a loud rumble. With an earth-shattering noise, Suyu was blasted 100,000 feet away, and his blood splattered all over the sky. Ultimate Void Sword. However, Suyu stubbornly performed the 3rd sword strike. With a cry of pain, the fist that was condensed from yellow sand finally collapsed completely, and the cracked body of Earthwalker appeared. The murderous look in his eyes was awe-inspiring. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Law of Earth soldiers. All of a sudden, the earth, with Suyu at the center, shook violently. Lines of soldiers condensed from sand appeared densely and charged toward Suyu. Ultimate Void Sword. Suyu still used the Ultimate Void Sword. The long sword swept across, and the interwoven giant net crushed all the soldiers into dust. Earthwalker, who was hiding in the net, roared in pain. He was completely enraged, and his palms kept hitting the ground. More and more powerful earth-based creatures emerged from the ground in a steady stream. Su Yu's eyes focused, and he pulled out a sword with each hand. With a wave of his left hand, the ultimate void sword destroyed all the creatures, and with a slash of his right palm, he slashed the body of Earthwalker again. As strong as his physique was, he finally could not withstand 6 consecutive slashes of the ultimate void sword. Finally, a huge crack appeared on his body. Countless amounts of divine blood splashed out, and it was extremely hideous. However, for a peak 5-crown emperor, these injuries were only considered moderate injuries, not even serious injuries. Brat, I will destroy you. Earthwalker felt that this was a great humiliation. He had been injured by a small prey of a 4-crown emperor. However, what surprised him was that after the sword slash, his opponent suddenly took out a talisman that was used to attack a peak 5-crown emperor. Earthwalker's eyelids twitched wildly. How could he dare to fight head-on? He immediately dodged and prepared to retreat. But right at the instant he was about to retreat, the word freeze that resounded through the heavens and the earth exploded in his ears like a thunderclap. Earthwalker's body suddenly stiffened, and he could not move. He watched helplessly as the talisman attacked his already injured body. Boom! With a loud noise, Earthwalker spat out blood all over his body, and his body showed extremely serious signs of breaking. For a peak 5-crown emperor, such injuries would only take half a month to recover. Finally, the rage on Earthwalker's face was replaced by fear. He could not continue fighting. He had never thought that he would be defeated in such a way by a 4-crown emperor. His opponent obviously still had some strength left. If he continued fighting, even if he did not die, he would be in grave danger. Brat, your nightmare has just begun. I'm only the first. Don't even think about living another day. Earthwalker turned and fled, roaring angrily as he fled. So he did not say a word. His eyes suddenly shot out 2 beams of white light. The light was incomparably bright, causing Earthwalker's head to ache. He shouted, it's a soul attack. Now that Su Yu's soul power was comparable to a mid-stage 5-crown emperor, the power of his soul attack was naturally incomparable. As he clutched his head in pain, Su Yu flew over. His palms gathered an extremely dense power of death, and he suddenly pressed them against his skull. The power of death madly invaded his body, causing his body to rapidly decay. No matter how strong his body was, in the face of the erosion of the power of death, it was useless. With a mournful roar, Earthwalker sent Su Yu flying, but his body was rapidly decaying. Moreover, the power of death was pervasively spreading towards his soul. His soul was in danger. Earthwalker gritted his teeth and had no choice but to leave his body, turning into a beam of light to escape. At this moment, he did not even dare to say another word. That human with 4 crowns was truly too terrifying. He had used all kinds of methods, and he, a 5-crown emperor, had actually destroyed his body. Now that only his soul was left, he could only flee. He had thought that he had picked up a great bargain, but now it seemed that he had kicked an iron plate and was seeking his own death. At this moment, his soul suddenly began to recede. Turning his head to look, Earthwalker was horrified. His soul was flying uncontrollably towards the vortex between Su Yu's brows. No, I don't dare. Earthwalker's screams came to an abrupt end. An unprecedentedly powerful soul power entered Su Yu's soul, causing his soul to show signs of growth once again. So he took a deep breath. He had used almost all of his methods to barely kill Earthwalker. A large part of the reason was that Earthwalker was so anxious to kill him that he kept advancing recklessly. If he had been a little more cautious, Su Yu would not have been able to kill him. After killing him, Su Yu immediately searched through his space storage. He was pleasantly surprised to find that there were 5-crown Emperor attack talismans in Earthwalker's storage space. He heaved a long sigh of relief. Killing Earthwalker had not been a waste of effort. The only pity was that there were no good swords among them. However, he did find some elixirs that contained the power of desolation. He swallowed them all in one go and quickly recovered a portion of his depleted power of desolation. Swoosh, at this moment, under the observation of the heavenly eyes, the second 5-crown Emperor was hurrying over from this direction. Su Yu clenched his teeth and rushed over. Ultimate Void Sword. First, he used his swordsmanship to open a path. The peak-tier King Hunter was startled and immediately dodged. Just as he dodged, an attack talisman from Earthwalker exploded. An unusually powerful force erupted from it, instantly injuring the Peak Emperor and forcing him to retreat. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Suyu escaped in a flash. However, he had not escaped for long before the Peak Emperor teleported over. The Peak Emperor, who had been forced to retreat, chased after Suyu anxiously. Suyu held 4 5-crown Emperor talismans in his hands. He crushed them at the same time and threw each at the other 2. Seeing this, their faces changed drastically and they all stepped aside, not daring to break through. Suyu, on the other hand, used his remaining desolate force and flew out in one go. Under the observation of the heavenly eyes, there were no more powerful 5-crown emperors in front of him. There were no hunters who could stop him. Thinking of this, Suyu felt a glimmer of hope. As long as he could reach the territory of the 3 Beast Kings, he would be much safer. Chapter 2104. A young man with a pointy face and cheeks, dressed in a yellow robe, tore off the invisible robe on his body without any warning and revealed himself. The pupils of the 2 Peak 5-crown martial emperors shrank when they saw this person. They were in awe. The Hunter King? There were only 9 Hunter Kings so far, and the pointy-faced, yellow-robed young man before them was the one who had recently obtained the title of Hunter King. It was said that he had only used 2 hours to successfully capture the prey that had just been placed in the royal hunting ground, becoming the fastest Hunter King in history. They had never expected the Hunter King to be hiding nearby. With his powerful strength, he should have been able to capture the prey directly. However, after careful consideration, he had waited until now. They had worked so hard, but the Hunter King had taken advantage of them. At this moment, the Hunter King had appeared within 10,000 feet of Suyu. Moreover, Suyu had used up all his techniques, and he had no more strength left in his body. He had indeed fallen into an unprecedented, desperate situation. Pray, I will keep your head safe for you. The Hunter King had witnessed Suyu's extraordinary strength and did not dare to be careless. He immediately attacked with all his might. A silver light shot out from his body, covering the sky and covering the earth as it shot toward Suyu. Suyu's face was filled with despair as he was melted by the silver light without any resistance. When the light dissipated, Suyu was nowhere to be seen. All that was left were torn clothes and a few drops of blood. Apart from that, everything else had evaporated. The Hunter King walked over and examined the surroundings. He shook his head slightly. Isn't your body too weak? You were directly turned into ashes. As he thought about this, he took out a photographic jade charm and tapped it with his finger. Immediately, a replay of Suyu's death appeared on it. Although I did not bring back his corpse, this recording is good enough. The Hunter King nodded slightly. He stood up. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of the compass strapped to his waist. On the compass, a clear golden dot of light was still flickering, and he was standing right above the dot of light. Why is the dot of light still there? The Hunter King was slightly stunned. His face turned pale as he shouted, "Oh no!" He was about to escape, but before he could do so, a speck of dust beneath his feet suddenly folded into a human figure. It was Suyu, who should have been smashed into pieces. His whole body was covered in blood, and his breath was extremely weak, but his life was not in danger. Evil Dragon Nirvana. The moment he appeared, Suyu turned into a half-dragon, half-human being, and his pitch-black giant claws pierced through the Hunter King's chest. With a clench of his fingers, he crushed the other party's heart. The immense power even shattered his body on the spot. Blood splattered all over Suyu's face, causing his half-dragon form to look extremely hideous. In less than a breath's time, the Hunter King's body was destroyed by the sneak attack. The King of Hunters' soul was stunned, as if he could not believe that as the King of Hunters, his body had suddenly been destroyed. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Suyu's face was covered in blood, and his eyes were bloodshot. Don't you like sneak attacks? As you wish. From the very beginning, he had used his transparent soul eyes to discover the King of Hunters hiding here and preparing to ambush him at any moment. Therefore, no matter how difficult the battle with the earthly monk was, he was determined not to use space folding or nirvana of the evil dragon. He was going to use them to deal with the most dangerous Hunter King. Now, it seemed that the effect was very good. While the Hunter King was unprepared, he destroyed the Hunter King's body with all his might. Then, Suyu immediately opened the soul vortex and devoured the Hunter King's soul. Suyu collected the things that the Hunter King had dropped on the ground and then ran away. The two-peak five-crown divine warriors reacted. They took a deep breath and immediately gave chase. Suyu followed his plan and headed straight for the deepest part of the cavern world. There were no more peak five-crown divine warriors blocking his way. With his half-dragon body, Suyu was like a dragon returning to the sea. There were no more obstacles. Half a day later, the number of pursuers gradually decreased. Firstly, it was because Suyu's half-dragon body was extremely fast, and it was difficult to catch up. Secondly, Suyu was quite powerful. The peak five-crown divine warriors who had caught up with him were already dead. Thirdly, Suyu had already begun to enter the territory of the three beast kings. As a criminal, Suyu was in no danger. However, as hunters, they had to be mentally prepared to die if they trespassed into the territory of the beast kings. In the end, there were only two peak five-crown divine warriors left, and they chased Suyu all the way into the depths of the cavern world. Suyu was exhausted, and the desolate force in his body was on the verge of exhaustion. Seeing that he was about to be caught up, Suyu suddenly saw a towering mountain in front of him. The mountain was surrounded by thunder and lightning, and the sound of thunder could be heard constantly. Suyu rushed into the mountain with vigorous strides. When the two peak five-crown divine warriors saw this, their faces were filled with fear. The myriad Thunder Beast King. That mountain was a treasure that the myriad Thunder Beast King had refined day after day using his own law of thunder. The fact that the treasure was here was enough to prove that the myriad Thunder Beast King was not far from this place. Looking at Suyu, who had escaped in a mountain, the two peak five-crown divine warriors thought about it again and again and could only retreat with hatred. He's lucky. With his heavenly eyes, Suyu realized that the two of them had indeed left. He let out a long sigh of relief, fell to the ground wearily, and took a few deep breaths. After a short rest, he immediately checked the things of the Hunter King. As the Hunter King, he had much more resources than the Earth Monk. There were more than 80 elixirs that could enhance the cultivation of the divine warriors. Suyu casually grabbed a handful of them and stuffed them into his mouth. The desolate force in his inner world was slowly recovering. In addition, there were more than 20 peak five-crown divine warriors' offensive talismans. The most precious thing was that he found a jade bottle that was tightly sealed by a jade lock. Inside, there was a droplet of blood that was constantly pulsating left and right, as if it were a living creature. Its vitality was extremely strong. The heavenly demon blood elixir, Suyu was delighted. The heavenly monster blood pill was a divine item that could be mentioned in the same breath as the Bodhi fruit of the Archeong Mirror Ecliptic Temple. It had an unimaginably wondrous effect on raising the cultivation base of the monarch realm. After swallowing it, one's cultivation would increase by a large margin. If he was on the verge of a breakthrough, he could use the medicinal potency to break through the bottleneck. Ever since the King of Hunters had obtained the Sky Beast blood pill, he'd wanted to use it when he broke through to the half-step Dowlord realm. This time, he planned to hunt Suyu and obtain another one. Then, he would use both of them together to increase his chances of achieving a breakthrough. Who knew that things would turn out contrary to one's wishes? Not only had he failed to kill Suyu, but his soul had also been destroyed. The heavenly demon blood pill, which had been carefully protected, fell into Suyu's hands. Suyu scrutinized the heavenly demon blood pill. His cultivation had stagnated at the middle stage of the four-crown divine warrior for a long time. During this period, he had been working hard to improve his cultivation, and he had long since reached the edge of breaking through. It was just that he lacked the right opportunity to break through. The heavenly demon blood pill before him might be able to help him break through to the late stage of the four-crown divine warrior. When he reached the late stage of the 4-crown divine warrior, the Bodhi fruit could be used. When that time came, he would be able to advance a level and step into the ranks of the 5-crown divine warriors. Chapter 2105. However, the fact that the two hunters were so afraid of this mountain meant that it was not a good place to stay. With a swoosh, Suyu left the mountain and headed deeper into the cavern world. The two hunters quickly left the Thunder Mountain. How unlucky! Even after being surrounded and intercepted, the hunter who chose his prey to kill 2 peak 5-crown kings, and one of them was the previous hunter king. Don't worry, unless he hides there forever and never comes out, he will die sooner or later. The two of them talked as they left quickly. When they were about to leave the territory of the 3 beast kings, they encountered a woman surrounded by thunder aura. Her face was pale and colorless, and her skin was surrounded by complex thunder patterns. A destructive and scorching aura spread from her feet. At first glance, she looked like a thunderbolt. She put her hands behind her back and said calmly, "Is it because we haven't killed hunters for too long that you think we are not scary?" The two hunters' expressions froze, and their hearts were filled with fear. "Senior, Wanlei." The woman turned around and stared at the two of them. She said calmly, "When you wanted to kill us, you called us Beast Kings. Why are you calling us seniors now? To be honest, I am not used to being called that." Thump! One of the hunters knelt down and cowed out. "Senior, please spare us. Please spare us. We did not mean to disturb you this time. We were just chasing a prey and trespassing on your forbidden land. Please spare us." The other hunter crushed a space transportation talisman without hesitation, preparing to escape. His movements were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he was sucked into the space and was already on the way to being transported. The woman's eyes flashed with disdain, and her eyes rolled slightly. A terrifying bolt of thunder, 10,000 feet thick, suddenly descended from the sky. The thunder flashed, and the whole world was illuminated in a dazzling light. When the light faded, a huge fireball fell from the sky and crashed onto the ground. From the shape of the burning fireball, it was the hunter who had escaped. With just a glance, a peak 5-crown emperor was blasted to death with lightning, even if the other party had fled to the end of her line of sight. "Senior, please spare us." The hunter who knelt on the ground pleaded loudly. The Thunder Breath woman walked over with her hands clasped behind her back, her expression indifferent. "As for me, I admire those who can adapt to the circumstances. So, you won't end up like him. Thank you, Senior, for showing mercy. Thank you, Senior." The hunter kneeling on the ground was extremely grateful. "Let me ask you, what kind of prey is it for the two of you to join hands to hunt it down, not even hesitating to enter my territory?" The Lightning Breath woman said. "With the prestige of the 3 beast kings, theoretically speaking, no hunter would dare to step into this place. The fact that they were willing to take the risk to enter could only mean one thing. The prey they were chasing was very special. The hunter didn't dare to hide anything and told the truth. After learning that it was by Exion's prey, the Thunder Breath woman was incomparably shocked. He's quite amazing. In the past, it was very difficult for prey to survive more than 2 hours. This little prey not only survived until now, but he also successfully killed 2 peak 5-crown emperors, one of which was the Hunter King. After thinking for a moment, the woman's eyes flashed. Why was he chosen by Princess Pishin as prey? We don't know. We only know that he suddenly appeared in the cavern world. A trace of disappointment appeared in the woman's eyes. She said, "You can go now." "Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior." The hunter was wild with joy and immediately ran away. However, before he could run far, a purple lightning bolt suddenly fell from the sky and pierced through his head. A bright red dot appeared between his eyebrows. As the bright red dot continued to expand, the hunter slowly closed his eyes. His face was filled with unwillingness as he fell down, lifeless. The woman said indifferently, "I said that I wouldn't let you end up like him. What I meant was that you would die in a different way. I never said that I would let you go." After saying that, she hooked her finger and hooked the compass in her palm. Looking at the constantly moving golden specks of light, A trace of interest appeared on the woman's face. What does he have to do with Princess Pishin? Chila. Thunder roared, and several flashes of lightning appeared. The woman had already turned into lightning and left. 7 Night, Divine Capital, Imperial Palace. Mao Susu was playing chess with Princess Pishin in the Imperial Garden. After 3 rounds, Mao Susu pushed the chess piece away and said, "I'm not playing anymore. You know I'm not in the mood for chess." She was so worried about Su Yu that she couldn't focus on playing. Pishin picked up a chess piece and smashed it at her. She said, "Little girl, I haven't seen you for a few years, and all you think about is men. You won't even play chess with me. You really value men over women." Mao Susu blushed and said helplessly, "I'm not. You should know that I'm worried about his safety. It's been a day. Why hasn't he come?" She listened to Pishin and waited patiently in the palace for a day, but Su Yu still hadn't come. Pishin's face didn't turn red and her heart didn't jump. She said smoothly, "What are you worrying about? Do you think I will harm him? Don't worry, the magic guards are very disciplined. Releasing someone has to follow strict procedures. Maybe they're still going through the procedures. Do you want me to rush them? Forget it. How can I keep troubling you?" Mao Susu felt bad. Pishin had been to the prison once because of Su Yu. How could she trouble her again? Although they were good friends, she couldn't keep troubling her. Moreover, Mao Susu always felt that the relationship between them was inexplicable. Once, she accompanied her father to the 7 Nights Divine Capital to report. The Demon Emperor was in front of her father, and she was waiting in the back garden of the palace. Princess Pishin happened to appear there, and they had similar interests. They quickly became good friends. Since then, Princess Pishin would occasionally go to the Luoyun continent to play with her. Mao Susu always felt that Princess Pishin was deliberately befriending her, which made her feel unreal. However, she couldn't tell what exactly was wrong. What is there to talk about between us? I'll ask the magic guards later and rush them, Princess Pishin said with a smile. She looked at Mao Susu, who was lost in thought, and said, "You look tired. Take a rest today and continue to drink the spiritual tea I specially made for you. You'll feel much better." Mao Susu nodded to express her gratitude. Yesterday evening, Princess Pishin had given Mao Susu a unique bowl of spiritual tea. After drinking it, she felt relaxed, as if the shackles that had been on her for many years were gradually being released. Chapter 2106. In the past, it was inconvenient for you to take it back because of your identity. Now that your father has died for the country, why don't you offer yourself as well? A ruthless smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Caw-caw. Suddenly, a crow flew quickly from the depths of the palace. The demon crow of a 9-demon prince? Princess Pishin frowned. Was that useless thing bullied by the 3 beast kings again? How useless! However, another projection was projected from the crow's eyes, and the information displayed shocked Pishin. He's actually still alive and hiding in the territory of the 3 great beast kings. Princess by Xian's eyes flickered with uncertainty. Now is the crucial moment to remove the 1 yuan fragment. She must not know that Su Yu is still alive, Princess Pishin said to herself. If so, would she still be willing to drink the spiritual tea? In order to remove the 1 yuan fragment, it had to be done voluntarily. Therefore, she accompanied Mao Susu again and again to make her lower her guard. Unfortunately, in another month, the Demon Emperor would come to the hunting ground to watch her and the 9 demon princes hunt. If Su Yu was not dead by then, it would be easy to expose him. Mao Susu would know sooner or later. Pass on my order. Whoever kills the target will be rewarded tenfold, Princess Pishin said. Su Yu must not be allowed to live. He must die within at least a month. What she did not know was that after she left, a small Cauldron appeared in the sky above her. It touched its chin with one of its hooves, pretending to think. At the hunting ground, Su Yu searched for several times and finally found a relatively quiet and safe place. He found a few defensive formation plates in the storage space of the Hunter King and set them up nearby. Now, the top priority was to immediately improve his cultivation and strength so that he could save his life. After making all the preparations, Su Yu swallowed the heavenly demon blood pill on the spot. In an instant, an incomparably scorching hot stream gushed out from his mouth. His whole cheeks instantly turned red, and then blood flowed freely. Finally, his flesh began to fester. The medicinal power of this thing was too overbearing. The demons could barely bear it because of their strong bodies. However, as a human, Suyu didn't have such an innately strong body. So, it wasn't hard to imagine what would happen if he swallowed the heavenly devil blood pill. The scalding liquid slid down his throat and began to burn through his throat, trachea, internal organs, and other internal organs. Half of his stomach was severely festering because of the heavenly devil blood pill. Although he had expected that the items of the demon race might not be suitable for the human race. However, he did not expect the side effects to be so terrifying. At this critical moment, he immediately used the law of life to heal his injuries. While his body festered, it was being repaired. The two were constantly alternating, causing the pain to become several times more prominent. Suyu was in so much pain that his vision turned black, but he clenched his teeth. This was the most important moment. He had to persevere. As more and more heavenly demon blood elixirs entered his body, the speed at which Suyu's body was rotting had already surpassed the speed of recovery. Half of its body had melted, turning into blood that dripped down onto the ground. If he wanted to, Suyu could expel the heavenly devil blood elixir from his body and stop his training. But if he couldn't break through, he would die here sooner or later. If he died, how could he reunite with Qin Xiener and Xia Jingyu? I can do it. Suyu clenched his teeth in pain. In fact, he had no teeth left to bite because half of his head had melted. His teeth and lower jaw were long gone. In the immense pain, Suyu felt like an eternity with every second that passed. Finally, a whole day passed. In Suyu's senses, it felt like a whole year had passed. In the hellish torment of having his body and soul destroyed, the medicinal power of the heavenly devil blood elixir finally began to enter Suyu's inner world. With the help of the overbearing medicinal power, the desolation power in his inner world expanded rapidly, like a rapidly inflating balloon. It continued to expand and expand. Finally, with a loud bang, the inner world exploded as if it had been torn apart. The scale of the inner world after the explosion expanded to twice its original size. Endless desolation power rapidly filled the inner world, making it unprecedentedly strong. A powerful cultivation realm rippled out from Suyu's body. A four-crowned divine warrior at the later stage, the desolation power is twice as strong as before, and the physique is also twice as strong. Suyu exclaimed in admiration. Now, even without relying on the law of life, his physique was self-repairing at a speed visible to the naked eye. With twice the desolation power, the power of my swordsmanship and various rules should be greatly enhanced. If I encounter the Earth Monk again, perhaps I won't have to fight so hard, Suyu said to himself. However, he could not stop his training. A four-crown divine warrior at the peak might be more than enough to deal with a five-crown divine warrior in the middle stage, but a five-crown divine warrior at the peak would still be extremely difficult. If he was not careful, his life would be in danger. The safest way was to break through to the five-crown divine warrior. If he could cultivate his swordsmanship to another level, he might be able to match a five-crown divine warrior in a later stage. However, the commotion caused by the breakthrough had attracted a considerable amount of attention. 3 extremely powerful auras rapidly descended nearby, so you could only recover from his injuries as quickly as possible. As he recovered from his injuries, 3 strong men with different postures and cultivation bases appeared. One of them was the Myriad Thunder Beast King, who was looking at Suyu with a faint smile. As for the other 2, one had a dragon horn on his head, and the other was covered in a metallic luster. It was clearly a puppet. Suyu's heart trembled slightly. He knew that they were the 3 local Beast Kings. He cupped his fists and said, "I was being hunted by hunters and broke into this place to seek shelter. Please forgive me." The Myriad Thunder Beast King smiled lightly. "Of course we know. Otherwise, why would we tolerate your breakthrough here?" It turned out that no one had disturbed him all this time. Suyu had mentally prepared himself for being discovered by nearby prey in the middle of his breakthrough. However, the breakthrough process was unexpectedly quiet and undisturbed. "Thank you, seniors," Suyu said. The Dragon Beast King was dressed in a golden robe. He had a majestic aura and seemed quite extraordinary. He looked at Suyu and said, "Can you tell us what crime you have committed that she is willing to pay 10 times the reward for you?" The periphery of their territory was already densely packed with hunters. More than 90% of the hunters in the entire cavern world had gathered here, ready to rush in and search for Suyu. The three Beast Kings were extremely curious about Suyu's background. What kind of person was worth Pishin hunting at all costs? Suyu smiled bitterly. "If I say that I have not committed any crime, would you believe me?" Unexpectedly, after hearing Suyu's words, the expressions of the three of them became unfathomable. The myriad Thunder Beast King smiled faintly. "Of course, because the three of us are the same. I used to be the #1 female heaven ruler in the Seven Knights' divine capital. Because I was more famous than the princess, I was taken away by the divine guards." At this point, the myriad Thunder Beast King's eyes were filled with hatred. "Then they killed an innocent passerby right in front of me and said that I killed him. In the end, I came here. Fortunately, I was very lucky. Not only did I not die, but I also successfully broke through to the level of half-path master in a life-and-death battle." Suyu did not doubt that the princess would commit a crime just because she was jealous of others. The myriad Lightning Beast King said, "Make another guess. How did this half-step Dowlord of the WYRM clan come here?" Suyu thought for a moment and said, "It should have something to do with Princess Pishin, right?" The myriad Thunder Beast King nodded. "Yes, he was one of the adopted sons of the demonic Beast Emperor. But because he accidentally broke Pishin's beloved porcelain, he was exiled here out of anger. The princess was really capricious just because of an object. The last one, you can't even guess his identity," the myriad Thunder Beast King said. So you thought for a moment, is he also Princess Pishin's relative? It's her biological mother who raised her. What? Suyu looked at the metal puppet in surprise. Princess Pishin was so vicious that she even sacrificed her biological mother as a prey. "You are surprised, aren't you?" the myriad Thunder Beast King said. Princess Pishin wanted to rely on herself to break through the shackles of her cultivation and become a Pathmaster. So, she decided to accept the Heartless Pathmaster's inheritance. And to cultivate the Heartless Pathmaster's inheritance, the first thing you should not do is kill your own parents to prove your path. Only by killing the person you love the most can you officially cultivate the Heartless Path. She only thought about it for one night before decisively killing her biological mother. However, her soul escaped into a puppet. Pishin couldn't do anything about it, so she threw the whole puppet into the hunting ground. Now, she's being hunted and killed, but she doesn't care. So he took a deep breath. He had seen many people who didn't care about their relatives. However, people like Pishin, who were heartless and unjust, were definitely the best of the best. To be precise, Suyu felt that such a woman could usually live longer. This was because she knew what she wanted very well, and she would do anything to achieve it. I don't know how many people are thrown into the Imperial hunting ground by Xian. However, there are very few people who can be targeted by her. Including you, there are only 10 people. The myriad Lightning Beast King asked curiously, "How did you provoke her?" Suyu replied calmly, "I didn't provoke her, but she wanted to kill me." Looking at the three Beast Kings, Suyu said, "Seniors, you don't have to worry. Before the hunters come here, I will leave your territory. I won't implicate you." Although the three of them were powerful, there were too many hunters. Even if their individual fighting prowess couldn't compare to the Beast Kings, their overall strength was something that the three Beast Kings couldn't contend with. The myriad Thunder Beast King was slightly moved. He stared at Suyu's eyes and asked, "Aren't you afraid of death?" Suyu took out a sword and said, "Of course I am. I'm afraid of death. All those things that I've waited for, those oaths, and those beautiful hopes are like the surface of a lake under the moonlight. They're hazy and fragile, and will disappear with the wind. Therefore, I have to fight. In order not to die, I have to fight. He understood that it was safe to stay here, but it was only temporary. Staying in a corner was just a little later than death. Chapter 21:07. The myriad Thunder Beast King took a deep look at Suyu. For a moment, her blood, which had been dormant for many years, started to boil. But his many years of cruel experience told him that when he killed his way out and opened up a path of blood, the blood left behind would only be his own. Wanting to shake the demon realm with the strength of one person was like daydreaming. It's up to you to decide when you want to leave, the myriad Thunder Beast King said leniently. He did not drive Suyu away immediately. Suyu cupped his fists and said, "Thank you." After the three Beast Kings left, Suyu slowly closed his eyes and took out a matured Bodhi fruit. He raised his head and swallowed the Bodhi fruit. All of a sudden, the Bodhi fruit produced a warm and vigorous energy, which seeped into Suyu's inner world and started nourishing its four walls. It was expanding his inner world in an extremely gentle way, thus achieving his cultivation's breakthrough. Compared to the Sky Fiend blood pill, the speed at which the Bodhi fruit increased cultivation was naturally much slower. It was not something that could be completed in a day or two. It was estimated that it would take at least a month. As he guarded his heart, he worked hard to comprehend the ninth form of the demonic sword technique. This sword technique had already reached the mastery stage, and if it could be cultivated to perfection, its power would increase by another level. Time passed slowly. On the outskirts of the Beast King's territory, the hunters started to form their own cliques. With the three king hunters as the center, they formed three hunting teams. They were the Cat Demon Hunter King, the Bull Demon Hunter King, and the Wind Demon Hunter King. Among them, the Cat Demon Hunter King's team was the strongest. He had gathered 8 peak 5 crown emperors and 40 mid 5 crown emperors. Next was the Ox Demon Hunter King, with 6 peak stage 5 crown emperors and 30 mid stage 5 crown emperors. Lastly was the Wind Fiend Hunter King. There were 4 peak stage 5 crown emperors and 20 mid stage 5 crown emperors. The total number of people in the 3 hunting teams had reached a scale of more than 100. All the elite hunters would gather here. The 3 great teams were full of competition, but they also cooperated with each other. Let's exchange the auras of our 3 teams. If one of our teams is attacked, the other 2 teams will be able to sense it immediately. The 3 Hunter Kings reached an agreement. They couldn't be blamed for being so vigilant. After all, they had learned from the fall of a Hunter King. This time, the prey that he had chosen was extremely powerful. As such, Princess by Xian increased the reward by 10 times and insisted that he must be killed within a month. Let's each choose a direction and form an encirclement. However, we'll try our best to avoid the Beast Kings. Don't clash head-on with them. If they try to encircle us, then immediately utilize half-step Dowlord grade offensive magic treasures. Those 3 Beast Kings should know what to do if they don't want to die. They also did not want to clash with the Beast King. However, if he had no other choice, then he could only utilize the half-step Dowlord offensive talismans that he prepared in advance, especially the Cat Demon. He even borrowed a Dao treasure immortal embryo. As long as a certain Beast King insisted on obstructing him, he would risk his life and activate the Dao artifact immortal embryo to kill him. With 10 times the reward, there was nothing that could stop them. The 3 teams began to enter the outskirts of the 3 Beast Kings' territories. The Beast Kings' trusted aides were active all year round in the periphery. They were the first to notice it, and as they sent back the message, they fled frantically. They had never seen such a powerful hunter group before, and they felt fear in their hearts as they quickly retreated. Moreover, the hunter group did not pursue them. Thus, the hunter group did not encounter any effective resistance along the way, and they advanced straight into the 3 great Beast Kings' territory. When the message was sent back, Suyu opened his eyes, looking slightly exhausted. He had been thinking hard for 10 days, but his swordsmanship had not made any significant progress. The 9th style was different from the other 8 styles, as it was a style that could only be gradually improved by tempering. Simply comprehending it wouldn't be of much use. Suyu stood up when he learned that 3 large-scale hunter teams had entered the Beast King's territory. He cast a profound gaze toward the distant horizon. As he clenched his fist, a sword appeared in his palm. "Let's go. Let's face the enemy." Suyu's gaze was resolute as he took a step forward, causing the space to tremble. Only a series of afterimages and a lingering murderous aura were left behind, lingering in the same place for a long time. The myriad thunder Beast King appeared there, and he looked in the direction in which Suyu had left. Swoosh! Suyu appeared at the peak of an ancient mountain. The local prey called this mountain the Heavenly Ceasing Mountain. It was a mountain peak that the heavens had cut off all their hopes. This mountain peak was created by the first demon emperor, the creator of the hunting ground, with his own fingernail. Inside the mountain peak, a powerful sealing force was produced repeatedly, strengthening the barrier of the cavern world day after day, so that the prey that entered it would never be able to escape. Suyu sat in a pavilion at the peak of the mountain peak. He grabbed a pot of strong wine casually. He poured a cup and poured it for himself. After finishing the cup, the strong smell of wine rushed into his mouth and nose, and his throat felt spicy. He couldn't remember how long it had been since he had drunk alone like this. In his memory, the clearest scene was the scene of him drinking with Xia Jingyu under a pear tree in the backyard of the Duke's mansion on Shenyu Island. 100 years had passed. The people were still there, but the pear flowers had withered. Even the peach tree might have withered and died of old age. That backyard must have withered, and the scenery of 100 years ago must have been unbearable. Things had changed, and people had changed. Only the memory remained. The fairy-like figure under the pear tree was like a gem fixed in the darkness. He had forgotten many things about Shenyu Island, but the beautiful figure was like a pearl that could not be erased, embedded in his memory, and could not be erased by time. Under the pear tree, the two of them danced together. That scene would become a masterpiece. In the future, he might not have the chance to meet Xia Jingyu under the pear tree again. In this life, there was only memory left. Dong! Dong! The air trembled slightly, shaking the clouds at the end of the world. They scattered and overlapped like white clouds and gray dogs that were being driven away, running in panic. The clear sky was suddenly covered with dark clouds. In the end, they turned into dark clouds, covering the world in darkness. Drip! A clear raindrop fell to the ground. It was raining. At first, it was like a pearl falling to the ground, then like a kite with a broken string, and finally like a bead curtain weaving into an impenetrable curtain of rain. The mountains, the forests, and the path that extended into the unknown were all shrouded in the hazy, misty rain. Only the pavilion where Suyu was, without wind or rain, was like a lonely star, standing alone in the vast galaxy. Is the sky crying? Suyu murmured. Or is Xia Jingyu crying? Or is it Qin Xiener? He poured a cup of wine. Crash! The curtain of rain suddenly shook. It was the sound of space trembling, causing the curtain of rain to overlap. The enemy had arrived. 25 shadows, dressed in black, broke through the curtain of rain, leaving behind an indelible shadow in the world of rain. Suyu looked up, looking at the figures that were becoming clearer and clearer. He grabbed the cup of wine and downed it. The enemy had arrived, so he stopped drinking. He slowly stood up, and the invisible aura around him was gradually released. Within the aura was Suyu's indomitable will, his fighting spirit that had been dormant for a long time, and his hot blood that he had forgotten about for countless years. Fight! Roar! The long sword on the table seemed to be responding to Suyu's strong fighting spirit. The sword roared into the sky, shaking the curtain of rain and destroying the clouds. A ray of sunlight shone on the pavilion, shining on the man and the sword. Crash! The space around Suyu trembled, his entire person being swept away by a space arc creak. An arc-shaped crack in the space suddenly appeared in the middle of the body of a middle-stage, 5-crown divine warrior. His body was sliced in half on the spot. At the same time, a hand reached out from the crack and reached into the shattered body. 5 fingers grabbed a ball of soul. The space arc dissipated, revealing the figure in the middle. It was Suyu. He grabbed the soul, opening a crack between his brows, and pressed it inside. The remaining blood in his palm landed between his brows, making his devouring eye look like a giant mouth that had eaten a living creature. It was abnormally ferocious. He's eating souls, even though the information stated that he could devour human souls. This was the first time they had seen it with their own eyes. There is no need to be afraid. Attack together according to the predetermined formation, the Wind Demon Hunter King said calmly. The hunters calmed down a little. With their formation, why would they need to fear a mere 4-crown divine warrior? Space collapse. But before they could get into formation, Suyu pressed down with his 5 fingers. The entire space in the area where the hunters were was caved in, like a collapsing sponge. Retreat from this area immediately. Their formation was in chaos. But at that moment, endless pitch-black sword shadows interweaved into a giant net, piercing through the people flying into the air. Heads fell to the ground like ripe fruits. Blood-red fountains sprayed all over the sky. The souls that had flown into the sky were all sucked into a vortex. Blood filled the sky. Along with the torrential rain, the world was dyed red. Suyu's silver-white hair had been dyed blood red without him realizing it. In the torrential rain, his messy clothes were scattered. It covered his face, but it couldn't cover his eyes that were dyed red with blood. I did not like to kill. Why force me? Suyu sighed at the sky. As he let out a long sigh, the rain became denser, drowning his voice in the impenetrable curtain of rain. The Wind Demon Hunter King sucked in a breath of cold air. In an instant, the middle stage 5-crown divine warriors were all killed. Only he and the 4-peak 5-crown divine warriors were left. Looking at the bloody man in front of them, it was as if they were looking at a monster that had become a demon. But greed overcame fear. The Wind Demon Hunter King yelled, "Attack together, kill!" The 4-peak 5-crown divine warriors responded. Suyu's right eye, which was already blood red, suddenly turned a magnificent wine-red color. He said calmly, "Time set." In an instant, the 5 attackers simultaneously felt that time had frozen around them, and they were unable to move at all. Death destroy. Within the bodies of the 5 people, an endless amount of death energy erupted at the same time, crazily destroying the vitality in their bodies. Puff, a peak 5-crown divine warrior with the weakest vitality, was destroyed by the law of death, only his soul escaping. No, he did not escape, but was sucked into the vortex. When the time freeze ended, there were only 4 people left. Apart from the Wind Demon Hunter King, who was perfectly fine, the other 3 looked old, their vitality drained. Chapter 2108. The Wind Demon Hunter King was terrified. Suyu's strength had far exceeded his expectations. He had no time to think about how a person could possess several kinds of rules at the same time, and each of them was a part of the 8 Great Supreme Rules. He only knew that he had to use his full strength. If you have any trump cards, just take them out. This prey is very dangerous, the Wind Demon Hunter King bellowed, taking out 7 to 8 long-range offensive talismans. Each talisman had the strength of a 5-crown peak divine warrior. When released at the same time, even the strongest 5-crown divine warrior would be annihilated. The other 3 extremely old hunters, who were on the brink of death, were equally fearful. They did not dare hold back, each taking out their trump cards. One of them had 5 offensive talismans, another had the talent of spitting out terrifying flames, and the last one was a person with double pupils. Attack! The 4 of them each took a direction, attacking from all directions at the same time. Under the cover of Suyu's blood technique, his bloodshot eyes glowed with an icy cold light. Fate Slash! The shapeless blade of fate cut through everything in the world that was connected to fate. The offensive talismans in their hands immediately lost their mental connection with them. The talismans they had refined seemed to have been severed. The hunter who spat out flames suddenly turned pale, unable to sense his talent of spitting flames. The last person with double pupils suddenly covered his eyes, 2 streaks of blood flowing out from the depths of his eye sockets. My eyes are ruined. The Wind Demon Hunter King's expression changed drastically, his face full of terror. Time, space, death, fate. You have half of the 8 great profound laws of heaven and earth? Impossible. How could the heavenly law tolerate an existence like you? Suyu's even colder light answered him. Soul shake. Suddenly, his eyes shone with white light. Regardless of whether they looked into Suyu's eyes, they all felt a boundless pain in their souls. It was as if sharp blades were stirring in their souls, causing them unbearable pain. And the soul law. The Wind Demon Hunter King turned pale with fright, anxiously yelling, "Charge over! Don't give him another chance to attack." Everyone was horrified, rushing over in a flash. The 4 of them were 1,000 feet away from Suyu at the same time, trying to destroy Suyu. Time and space. Reverse flow. Suyu's purple and wine-red eyes shone brightly. With Suyu as the center, the area within a radius of 10,000 feet was plunged into an independent time and space where 2 colors interweaved. Time and space kept flowing backward there. Their conditions were rapidly deteriorating, including their cultivation and age. Eternal life. Suyu's whole body was releasing a steady stream of green vitality, replenishing the life that he had lost in the flow of time. As for the other 4, their bodies began to change at a speed visible to the naked eye. They went from tens of millions of years old to millions of years old. Their condition also returned to that time. The first to fall back to the middle stage of the 5 crown emperors were the 3 hunters. Their already aged bodies also returned to their youthful state. Only after him was the Hunter King, his cultivation level continuously regressing, about to fall below the peak of the 5 crown emperor realm. The Wind Demon Hunter King was terrified. He felt that he was not hunting a person, but the omnipotent heavenly Tao. Wind core explode. At the critical moment, the Wind Demon Hunter King slammed his palm on his chest. However, with a cracking sound, an extremely large tornado immediately appeared around his body, forcefully sweeping him and the other 3 hunters away from this dangerous place. However, they had just arrived at a safe place. A nightmarish voice exploded in their ears. Time and space. Freeze. In an instant, even the rapidly spinning tornado was motionless. The 4 of them could not move. To be exact, even their thoughts were frozen forever. Suyu walked over in time and space, the long sword in his hand pointing at the 4 heads one by one. The 3 Hunter Kings, whose cultivation levels had fallen, could not withstand the sword. Their heads exploded one after another, their souls taken away on the spot. Roar! The time and space froze, and only the Hunter King was left. He remained in the state before he froze, yelling, "The 3 of you, spread out and adjust your strategy." However, what he saw were 3 headless corpses. He froze on the spot. He felt as if there was a gap in time. How could the heads of people who had been perfectly fine suddenly disappear? It was only when a pair of cold eyes came into view that he felt fear from the depths of his soul. He was the only one left in the entire hunter team. A gust of cold air rushed up from the soles of his feet, causing his entire body to shiver. He screamed in terror, losing all will to fight. He hid in the tornado and fled hurriedly. Suyu slowly extended his right index finger, pointing at him from afar. Ultimate ruins. With a sweep of the sword, the tornado was sliced into pieces. The Hunter King, who was hiding in it, fell out and fled in panic. As a peak 5 crown divine warrior, he had fled hundreds of millions of miles in an instant. However, just as he stopped, he suddenly felt the sky above him darken. Looking up, a pair of giant wings that spanned tens of thousands of feet across the vast sky were gently flapping, blocking out the sun and the sky. In the center of the wings, a tiny blood man was staring at him coldly. At this moment, the Wind Demon Hunter King was really scared out of his wits. He screamed in terror. I'm not hunting anymore." He wanted to escape again, but he was swept down by a 6-colored chain. Puff! His body was crushed into minced meat by the 6-colored chain of rules. At the same time, a giant palm pressed down, grabbing the soul that was about to escape along with the space, and then pressing it into the soul vortex. At this point, the Wind Demon Hunter King team was annihilated. A total of 25 people, none of them survived. At the same time, The team of the Cat Demon Hunter King and the team of the Ox Demon Hunter King stopped in their tracks. The Cat Demon Hunter King's eyes were filled with shock and fear. The team of the Wind Demon Hunter King completely annihilated. He stared at the spot of light on the compass in disbelief. And the remaining golden spot of light. One person annihilated a team? How terrifying was his combat power? The team of the Ox Demon Hunter King also stopped in their tracks, staring at the remaining golden spot of light in shock. What made them even more serious was that the golden spot of light was speeding towards them. That speed was 10 times faster than their Hunter King. The Ox Demon Hunter King's expression was grave, and he hurriedly yelled, "Prepare for battle. The prey is coming towards us." 6 peak 5 crown divine warriors and 30 middle 5 crown divine warriors were shocked. The annihilation of the team of the Wind Demon Hunter King left an indelible shadow in their hearts. They no longer had the confidence to kill the prey. Only now did they realize that the prey they were hunting was not ordinary prey, but a terrifying existence that was no less dangerous than a beast king. Rumble. Before they were ready, thunder suddenly roared in the sky. Bolts of lightning danced wildly in the sky. From afar, endless black clouds rolled over like a giant hand that covered the sky, slowly brushing across the horizon. Many of the hunters swallowed hard, staring at the pitch-black world under the black clouds. It was as if the endless darkness was devouring the world. They would also be devoured. Whoosh! The sound of rain approached from afar. It covered the earth and formed a hazy curtain of rain. The Ox Demon Hunter King looked at the compass. It showed that the golden spot of light was in front of them, under the black clouds. Gulp, gulp. Someone fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva, making a soft sound. An invisible fear spread among them. At this moment, under the black clouds, a weak, bloody light suddenly appeared. It came from the end of the world, growing larger bit by bit. In the misty rain, it seemed demonic and evil. In the end, the pitch-black, inky clouds were illuminated by the blood-red light. Looking over, it was a human covered in blood. His body was stained with the god blood of the demon race. It was the light reflected by the god blood that dyed the black clouds blood red. He walked over step by step, accompanied by the black clouds above his head. It was as if a blood demon had crawled out of hell and descended into the world. Finally, the sky above their heads was also covered by dark clouds. The world gradually darkened. In the entire world, only the bloody man emitted a dazzling bloody light. It was as if he was the only one in the world. Kill. The Ox Demon Hunter King realized that fear, which he had not felt for many years, was once again lingering in his heart. Trembling, he gave the order to kill. 36 hunters suppressed their fear and attacked together. The overwhelming attacks illuminated the pitch-black sky in a dazzling manner, overshadowing the blood-colored figure's radiance. In the end, the bloody figure disappeared, as if he had perished. But the huge shadow above their heads told them that he was not dead. Chi! A soft voice resounded in the incomparably silent darkness. In their eyes, a speck of dust on the spot where they had shattered the space was gradually magnified and turned into a blood-colored figure. He was unharmed. Sword come. Clang. The bloody figure swiped his finger. 99 swords of different shapes appeared behind him, revolving around him. He was like the king of swords, commanding all the swords in the world. Returning ruins, sword. A sword flew out, releasing thousands of sword images, forming a net that enveloped them. The Ox Demon Hunter King shouted in a low voice, "The power of the sword technique is average. Defense is enough." Returning ruins, 2 swords. Returning ruins, 3 swords. Returning ruins, 4 swords. Returning ruins, 99 swords. However, 1 sword shadow net after another pressed down on him. They could block 1 sword. They could block 10 swords. Then 20 swords, 30 swords, even 99 swords. How could they block it? At the 60th sword, the normal middle stage 5 crown emperors were gradually unable to block it, being suppressed by the endless sword net. At the 70th sword, casualties were already appearing. At the 80th sword, More than half of the middle stage 5-crown emperors were cut into pieces. At the 90th sword, only a few middle stage 5-crown emperors survived by relying on powerful treasures. At the 99th sword, accompanied by a few cries of regret, they were all dead. Only the Ox Demon Hunter King and 6-peak 5-crown emperors were left. But they were covered in wounds, their auras slightly weak. Looking at the flesh and blood on the ground, they all revealed expressions of fear. 30 middle stage 5-crown emperors, all dead. Chapter 2109. Even the 7 of them could feel their souls being constantly pulled out, let alone those who had lost their bodies. One by one, the souls were being pulled away, sucked into the cracked eye. Of the 25 souls that had been devoured before, 5 of them were peak 5-crown divine warriors. Now, he had devoured the souls of 30 peak 5-crown divine warriors. Su Yu's soul power had been strengthened by the space, instantly breaking through to the peak 5-crown divine warriors. His body felt like it was swelling. That was a sign that his soul was too powerful, causing his body and soul to be incompatible. If his soul continued to grow stronger, his body would explode from the overload of his soul. The body that he had cultivated for many years would be destroyed. The Ox Demon Hunter King and the others wanted to save the souls of their companions, but it was to no avail as the souls were being devoured. They could only watch as Su Yu devoured all the souls. At that moment, they could clearly feel that there was an extremely powerful soul in Su Yu's body, one that was even stronger than them. "Don't give him a chance to attack," someone shouted, and the 7 peak 5-crown divine warriors attacked together. Su Yu looked up, his eyes pale and piercing. Soul shatter. Ah! With a glare, all of a sudden, apart from the Ox Demon Hunter King, the other 6 peak 5-crown divine warriors felt an intense pain in their heads. It was as if their souls had been hammered by someone, causing them to shatter. Time freeze. Su Yu looked over again. A purple light enveloped the 7 of them, causing their bodies to stiffen and be unable to move. He took a step forward, summoning the 7 talismans of the Wind Demon Hunter King and the others, stuffing them into the mouths of each of them. When the time freeze ended, and they were about to spit out the talismans in fear, Su Yu said calmly, "Explode." Boom! 7 loud noises filled the air, accompanied by the explosion of blood, staining the sky. The 6 peak 5-crown divine warriors died on the spot, their bodies shattered, and even their souls were destroyed. All that was left were their weak, defeated souls. Su Yu curled his fingers, devouring them all, temporarily storing them in the depths of his eyes. In the end, only the severely injured Ox Demon Hunter King was left. His eyes were filled with fear, and the will to fight in his heart quickly collapsed. In front of a strong man who had mastered the 8 profound meanings of time and soul, it was not difficult to kill him. All he had to do was freeze him for a moment and stuff in another talisman, and he would be sent on his way. Hutong, the Ox Demon Hunter Monarch, knelt down on one knee and begged, "Senior, please spare my life. I'm willing to be your slave." Su Yu looked at him calmly and asked, "If I allow myself to be slaughtered by others, will you spare my life?" Of course not. Su Yu's life was priceless, and it was even more valuable than the life of a half-stepped outlord. He said in his heart, but his face was full of sincerity. "Yes." Su Yu shook his head slightly. "You have already decided your fate in your heart." His eyes suddenly turned pale and released an incomparably powerful and dazzling light. The Ox Demon Hunter King covered his head and roared. Sensing death approaching, the Ox Demon Hunter King knew that he would definitely die. His opponent would not let him go, and a vicious glint flashed in his eyes. "Then let's die together." The Bull Demon Hunter King suddenly transformed into a 1,000 feet tall green bull and spat out a round bead the size of a small house. The bead instantly released an unparalleled amount of energy. That was the demon elixir unique to the demon race. Their inner world was within the demon elixir. At that moment, the demon elixir expanded rapidly and then exploded with a bang. The terrifying energy instantly destroyed everything around it. Even the space was destroyed, and cracks appeared inch by inch. At that moment, even space teleportation could not be performed, and all space divine techniques were rendered ineffective. Suyu was hit by the explosion on the spot, and his body exploded into dust in the sudden blast wave of the explosion. When the dust that soared into the sky settled, a slightly weak voice sounded from the center of the explosion. Resurrection from the dead. A wave of emerald light flashed, and Suyu's body, from his bones to his meridians and finally to his skin, was slowly reconstructed. His eyes were filled with exhaustion that could not be concealed. Using the 8 great esoteric meanings consecutively, over 100 times, and using his soul energy several times, both his body and soul were extremely exhausted. He was almost at his limit. However, only half of the enemies were killed. There were still half left. To be precise, the last half was the main force. He found a large batch of elixirs from the space storage device he seized and stuffed them into his mouth like sugar pills to replenish his severely depleted primordial desolation power. At the same time, the entire territory of the Beast King shook violently because of the self-destruction just now. The Cat Demon Hunter King's team that was rushing to this place stopped in shock. The Cat Demon Hunter King's team immediately took out the compass, and with just one look, his pupils constricted fiercely. The Bull Demon Hunter King's team was completely annihilated. They were completely annihilated again. If the Wind Demon Hunter King's team was annihilated because they were relatively weak, then the annihilation of the Bull Demon Hunter King's team was enough to show the seriousness of the matter. This time, the prey that they had chosen was definitely an extremely dangerous existence. After pondering for a long time, the Cat Demon Hunter King said in a deep voice, "All the mid-stage 5-crown emperors retreat, form groups of 10, and choose guerrilla warfare." The prey was so powerful, and if the mid-stage 5-crown emperors gathered together, they would be easily wiped out. It was better to disperse and let the peak 5-crown emperors fight as the main force, while they acted according to the situation. The people were quickly rearranged. A hint of excitement flashed across the Cat Demon Hunter King's eyes. It's been a long time since I've had the feeling of hunting. It's been a long time since I've encountered such a challenging prey. I hope that the immortal embryo Dao tool in my hands won't come in handy. At the same time, in the palace, Princess Pishin was very serious about the travel plan for the Ancient Dream Forbidden Land. The Ancient Dream altar was very dangerous, and every step could not be taken wrongly. She needed to make a deduction for every step that followed. However, she could not calm her heart, so she could not deduce anything. Ask about the situation at the hunting ground. After a few days, there was still no news of victory. Soon, Prince Jiao personally returned from the hunting ground and knelt down in fear and trepidation. "Greetings, Princess." As the adopted son of the Demon Emperor, Prince Jiao was very clear about his status. In front of Princess Pishin, his status was not much higher than that of servant. Therefore, he did not dare to anger Princess Pishin. Urged the hunters to speed up their actions. There has been no news for several days. Their reaction is too slow, Princess Pishin said lightly. Prince Jiao looked a little flustered and said, "Princess, I just received the latest information. Please have a look, Princess." He took out a compass and handed it over to him. Princess Pishin glanced at it. She knew that the golden light spot was Suyu. The rest of the light spots around Su, you should be the hunters. Princess Pishin's beautiful eyebrows were slightly bent. Only 49 hunters? She was slightly displeased and said coldly, "Are you not satisfied with the 10 times the reward?" She felt that her dignity was being challenged. Prince Jiao hurriedly said, "Princess, there are actually 2 other teams, with a total of more than 50 people." With this, Princess Pishin's expression eased a lot, and she scolded, "Where are they? Have they not joined the encirclement yet?" Prince Jiao lowered his head, not daring to look at Princess Pishin's eyes, and said, "They have all been wiped out." "Wiped out?" Princess Pishin was slightly stunned, and then her eyes flashed with anger. "Well, the 3 Beast Kings dare to openly protect the people I want to kill." Prince Jiao lowered his head even more and said, "Princess, the 3 Beast Kings did not show up. It was done by the prey that I selected. Hearing this, Princess Pishin's expression changed greatly. What he alone? Her eyes flashed with deep surprise, and she said, "What about the strength of the other two teams?" Prince Jiao did not dare to hide anything, and said, "There are 2 Hunter Kings, 10 Peak 5-Crown Beast Kings, and 50 Middle Stage 5-Crown Beast Kings, a total of 57 people." Crack! Princess Pishin suddenly stood up, and because she used so much force, she broke the jade table with her palm. Her pretty eyes flashed with deep shock. How could he have such strength? At first, she did not pay attention to Suyu at all. She just regarded him as an ant that she could pinch to death with one finger. Therefore, she dared to throw him into the cavern world and let the hunters kill him. Now it seemed that he was not an ant at all. He was clearly a flying dragon that looked like an ant. She felt a little regret in her heart. Her original actions seemed to be a little reckless. If she had known that he had such strength, she would have either killed him on the spot or won him over like Mao Susu. However, it was too late to say anything now. His eyes flickered with a deep killing intent. They were already enemies through and through. Therefore, it was impossible to win them over. The only thing he could do was to kill them at all costs. "Pay close attention to the relevant situation and report to me at any time," Princess Pishin said. Prince Jiao nodded. When he left the princess's palace, his whole body was already wet, as if he had walked through the gates of hell. In another part of the palace, Mao Susu was still waiting for Suyu quietly. Creak, the palace maid brought hot spiritual tea and said, "Miss Mao, please enjoy." Mao Susu nodded and said, "Put it down. You could drink it later." She was full of anxiety and was not in the mood to drink tea. The palace maid's eyes flashed slightly, and she slowly retreated. After wandering in the room for a long time, Mao Susu felt that something was wrong. It had been a few days. Why hadn't Suyu come? Was Pishin hiding something from her? After thinking hard for a long time, Mao Susu looked at the spiritual tea on the table and picked it up to drink. Unexpectedly, a mass of pink mist suddenly flashed in front of her, and a claw stretched out from it, knocking over the spiritual tea in her hand. Mao Susu was shocked and hurriedly stepped back, yelling, "Who is it?" In the mist, a little Qilin with an injured leg crawled out and limped. "It's you." Mao Susu naturally recognized that it was Su Yu's spiritual pet. She said in surprise, "You're here. Is Suyu here? Is Pishin trying to surprise me?" The little Qilin spoke human language and stared at her, as if she was a fool. "Suyu has been in the palace for a long time." "Really? Then why didn't he come to see me?" "Because he is in the hunting ground." Mao Susu looked puzzled. "Why?" "He came to the palace and didn't come to find me. Instead, he went to the hunting ground to catch prey. He really doesn't care about me at all. I've been worried about him all this time." The little Qilin laughed. "He wants to care about you, but he is now a prey being hunted by everyone. He can't care about you." Chapter 21:10. Otherwise, why do you think Suyu hasn't come to see you for so long? The little Qilin jumped onto the table. Because of the injury on its right hind leg, it subconsciously shrank its leg, which looked funny. However, the little Qilin couldn't laugh at all. Mao Susu thought she had heard wrong. She stammered, "Did the magic guards make a mistake? I'll ask Nyunyo right away." The little Qilin looked down at the spiritual tea that had been knocked onto the ground. It said calmly, "If you want Suyu to die faster, you can ask that princess friend as soon as possible." "Her? What does it have to do with her?" Mao Susu was stunned. The little Qilin ignored her and stared at the spiritual tea in silence. Mao Susu saw the strange look in the little Qilin's eyes and said, "Are you saying that Nyonyo did everything?" "No, Nyonyo is not that kind of person." She subconsciously defended Princess Pishin. Little Qilin didn't want to say another word to this completely stupid woman, as it said indifferently, "Then you should get along well with your princess friend. I hope that one day, when you are stabbed to death by her sword on the ground, you will still think the same way." As it spoke, the little Qilin turned into a cloud of pink mist and was about to leave. "Wait, I don't mean to doubt you, but Nyonyo is my good friend. Why would she?" In fact, Mao Susu knew that the friendship between them was very inexplicable. When the little Qilin said, that Suyu was in the hunting ground, she already knew that it might have been Pixin's doing. She just couldn't accept it. That's right. What kind of good friend would poison your spirit tea and cause your bloodline to wither day by day? The little Kylan said disdainfully. And how stupid of a friend is she to drink this kind of spiritual tea every day? Mouse Susu was stunned. Looking at the spiritual tea on the ground, she said in disbelief, "Poison?" She bit her lip and thought for a moment. Then she took out a small bottle with a pitch-black bug in it. This was the famous spirit-swallowing bug, which was very sensitive to spiritual objects. Similarly, it was the same for poisonous objects. The spirit-swallowing bug lay in the spiritual tea and took a sip. Suddenly, the wings of the spirit-swallowing bug flickered with a deep black color. At the same time, it shook its head vigorously and stopped drinking the spiritual tea. Mouse Susu was trembling, her face pale. The reaction of the spirit-swallowing bugs was enough to explain everything. There must be poison in the spiritual tea that she couldn't sense. "Nyo-nyo, Princess by Xen poisoned me? Why?" Mouse Susu still felt that everything was unreal. The little Kylan asked back, "Then why do you think you, as the daughter of the prefecture king, can be friends with the princess of the demon realm? Because you know how to act cute?" Mouse Susu was not so stupid that she could not be saved. She weakly said, "You mean she wants the 1 yuan fragment in my bloodline? What else?" Little Qilin was speechless towards Mouse Susu. Was there even a need to ask such an obvious question? Mouse Susu's face gradually paled, and she finally recognized reality. Her eyes were filled with deep anger. "A complete liar. You even wanted to harm Brother Suyu because of this. You were afraid that he would steal my 1 yuan fragment, right?" Little Kylan applauded approvingly. "Your intelligence has finally woken up." Mouse Susu had always been kept in the dark and trusted Pixin too much, making her seem stupid and ignorant. Now that most of the truth had been revealed, her eyes regained their liveliness. Her eyes were filled with hatred, and she said, "The most important thing now is to rescue Brother Suyu, but I don't know anyone in the palace. If I ask for help, I'm afraid Pixin will know immediately. We can only rely on ourselves." Little Qilin's eyes brightened. Mouse Susu was not too stupid. She said, "I came to find you in hopes that you can help me. Send me into the hunting ground and give Suyu's things to him." Before Suyu was imprisoned, the 9 jade spiritual pearl and the Buddha bead space were taken away by little Qilin in advance, so they did not fall into the hands of the magic guards. Now that Suyu had nothing, his situation in the hunting ground could not be described as terrible. Mao Susu said, "Entering the hunting ground at other times is as difficult as ascending to heaven. Only in half a month's time, when the demon emperor personally comes to the hunting ground to watch the prince's hunt, will outsiders be allowed to watch?" Little Qilin frowned deeply. "We have to wait for a month? Can he hold on until then?" She had tried to enter the hunting ground, but the space barrier around the hunting ground was sealed by the Path Master himself. Even if she transformed into reality, it would be difficult to enter. "I hope the heavens can help him. In a month's time, I will secretly bring you inside to find Suyu." At this very moment, Suyu had forcefully restored his desolation power to its peak, but the exhaustion of his soul could not be relieved. He took stock of the items he could use. All of his swords had been used up. There were only 3 peak 5-crown divine warrior talismans left. The elixirs could only restore his desolation power once. There were only so many of them available, but there were still half of the enemies left. Scanning the compass, the enemies had already sensed Suyu's power. They changed their attack strategy and began to disperse into groups of 10. Among them, there was a group of 9 light spots that sped toward this place. Another 4 teams of 10 people spread out and surrounded them. Suyu stood up, his gaze fixed on one of the groups of 10. With a tap of his toes, he flew toward them. In the end, he had just moved when the people in that group sensed him, and they all retreated to avoid direct contact with Suyu. The group of 9 changed directions and quickly chased after Suyu. "You think you can escape?" Suyu looked at the group of 10 escaping light spots, the huge wings on his back instantly unfurling. In a breath's time, he descended above them. "Space Lotus, A vast and distant voice sounded above the heads of the 10 middle stage, 5-crowned divine warriors. Before they could react, they were sealed within a space lotus. As the petals of the lotus bloomed continuously, the hunters sealed within were all killed. Their souls and space storage devices were all taken away. All that was left was a pile of corpses. There was nothing else. Suyu's figure had not even been revealed. The cat demon hunter king's expression changed. Not good. He is proficient in some kind of extremely frightening escape technique. All the middle stage 5-crown divine warriors, scatter and use your individual soldiers. He did not finish his sentence. On the compass, the remaining 3 groups of hunters were extinguished one after the other. Not a single one of them was left alive. How ruthless, a peak hunter said, his eyes filled with a deep chill. In the blink of an eye, 40 middle stage hunters were completely annihilated. A few days ago, they had a huge group of nearly 100 hunters. Now, only 9 of them were left. None of the others were left alive. They had all been killed. This prey is cruel by nature, killing people like scything flax. No wonder he was chosen by Pishin. As the pillars of the demon realm, it is our duty to exterminate evil, and we swear to destroy this monster. The remaining 9 people were united with the cat demon hunter king as the center. They did not advance rashly, but instead began an extremely meticulous plan. Suyu looked at the compass. Seeing that they did not immediately attack, his eyes filled with a cold light. He raised his head and swallowed an elixir, then suddenly shot toward where the 9 people were. The moment they appeared, the 9 of them split up into 3 groups. One of the groups, led by the cat demon hunter king, stayed where they were, while the other 2 groups instantly fled tens of thousands of feet away. Time and space freeze. The moment he appeared, Suyu immediately used 2 laws to imprison them. His eyes were filled with fierce, murderous intent. He transformed into a half-dragon, half-human body and clawed at the body of the cat demon hunter king. However, at that moment, the 6 hunters who had fled tens of thousands of feet away suddenly turned back to help. Each of them unleashed their peerlessly powerful laws to obstruct Suyu with all their might. Suyu had no choice but to fight back. Time and space freeze. But just as they were about to be immobilized, the time and space freeze ended. A trace of confusion flashed in the eyes of the cat demon hunter king and the other 2. Then they were slightly delighted, knowing that their tactics had worked. No matter how powerful Suyu was, he was still only one person, while there were 6 of them. Endless dust sand. The cat demon hunter king immediately used his own law, and the other 2 hunters cooperated very well. They each attacked, blocking Suyu's escape route. At the same time, the 6 hunters who were frozen in time also began to regain their freedom. Once they joined the siege, Suyu would definitely die with hatred. Yin-yang wings of supreme pole. Suyu's 10,000 zhang wings trembled abruptly, and a boundless hurricane sent them flying, while Suyu himself flew a great distance away. The cat demon hunter king's eyes showed a trace of disappointment, and he sighed. So close. As he spoke, he looked at the 9 people who had gathered and immediately realized that something was wrong. Disperse quickly. However, he was still a step too late. Suyu, who had already left, suddenly returned. Before he appeared, he had already attacked. Space freeze. Time freeze. Soul follow. Death destroy. As soon as he appeared, the 4 supreme laws were displayed at the same time. First, they were locked in space, unable to disperse and escape. Then, they were sealed in time, unable to move. Then, there was the excruciating pain from their souls, making them lose the ability to resist in time. Finally, it was the horrifying law of death, crazily destroying their vitality. At the same time, the half-human half-dragon that Suyu had transformed into swooped down. Before the time was frozen, his sharp, giant claws pierced through a hunter's chest and tore him to pieces. At the same time, his long dragon tail instantly wrapped around a hunter's head, strangling him. At the last moment when the time was frozen, he grabbed the souls and storage space of the 2 hunters and immediately disappeared into the distance. Die! The cat demon hunter king was furious. He took out the doctrine artifact fairy embryo and launched a fatal attack. However, Suyu's reaction was extremely quick, and he had long since left the place, making it impossible for him to find his target. Looking at the two companions who had sacrificed themselves, the cat demon hunter king's eyes were exceptionally gloomy. In a moment of carelessness, he had lost two companions. 9 people, only 7 were left. Split into 2 groups, for people in one group and 3 in the other. Always maintain a distance of 100,000 feet and support each other. Remember this lesson. Next time, don't give Suyu any chance to take advantage of us, the cat demon hunter king said in a low voice. The 2 groups maintained a distance of 100,000 feet and chased after Suyu, who was extremely far away. Suyu rested for a moment, recovering the desolate power he had lost while searching the storage devices of the 2 hunters. 3 swords, elixirs, enough to recover his cultivation 5 times. 4 offensive talismans,